As my wife says, my other home is Tallahassee.
I can't remember the guy's name.
Yeah,
Just long.
that's all.
Yeah. There's just a certain point where, until the budget comes out, you
Morning.
many, many,
Outstanding.
people
How are
in
you?
the
Got your hair all trimmed up.
I already told you yes.
I need a haircut.
I understand, but until it's in the budget,
It looks like
I'm the guy that
a lot of
runs every ground ball.
hairspray to keep it in.
I was gonna joke with you.
I
don't know.
You gotta keep it fresh in your mind.
Always. You know what?
We didn't retire on my watch.
Put on the table like 40-weight motor.
Always.
And
And the good news is everyone gets a two terms, so had really good progress last year. So approach chairs, so
Do I send the dry cleaning bill for the
speakers,
seat?
still
Port
speakers.
authority, Mr.
Here we go.
They've all gotten to know me very well.
It's the same stuff you put on your seat in your car.
Oh, don't touch the hair, man.
What's he like?
Very straightforward.
Which number does
very,
he handle on this
big budget person. So he and I got along great. Accountants, budget people, So,
Yeah.
really, really good guy.
There's yes.
I just got it working.
It should be.
Should be.
We're already on it. So it should be fine.
Well, so is he, but currently he
Yeah,
does.
everybody's good.
Talked to my son last night. He's got approval on his loan for his new
Rich,
property out
the
there.
only thing bad about this transformer
acres
is down
near
here,
Snowmass.
that car.
You can get one that's a multi.
I'm like a cowboy out there.
This is, I am so mad that
Then
they
just
changed
What is
this.
it, track your plate?
Yeah, that's
Open the gate if the plate doesn't match?
No.
All that.
No.
Companies
So I gotta take the electric tape off my license plate? Turn the microphone.
Turn it off.
condo. 5 acres out there.
Apparently.
sounds really nice.
Putting into that.
Well, all right, I got 9:32. I guess it's up to me to start us. We got everybody. All right, I'm going to start us off one last time. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Lee County Port Authority and Board of Port Commissioners for January 18th, 2024. At this time, let's begin the meeting with our invocation from Pastor Derek Tennant from Rise Christian Church. Pastor, if you'll join us at the podium.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we are grateful to you for this world that we live in. I thank you, Lord, for this state and this county that we are a part of. And I thank you, Father, for the people who give tirelessly to make everything run the way it needs to care for the needs of the people, to watch out for those who can't protect themselves and can't take care of themselves. I thank you, Lord, for those who have a heart for helping things to be better and constantly looking for ways that we can improve the quality of life. I pray, God, that as decisions are made today, that they are done in humility and in wisdom. And we thank you, Father, for the things that you give us, the minds that you give us that allow us to do these things, and just pray that you continue to guide each one of us as we walk through this life. We pray all these things today in the strong name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. You have the clerk here. All right. Well, at this time, I would like to recognize the Lee County Clerk of Courts to perform the annual reorganization of the Board of Port Commissioners. Good morning, Mr. Clerk.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. Good morning, Commission members. My name is Kevin Carnes. I'm the Lee County Clerk of Court and Comptroller. As ex officio member to this board, my purpose today is to facilitate the vote of Port Chairman. In just a moment, we will open nominations for Chair. We will do a voice vote at the end of that process. It's an honor to be with you all today. And with that, we'll get started. So the floor is now open for nominations for Port Chair.
I'll nominate Mike Greenwell.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Sandelli. We didn't need a second, but thank you, Commissioner.
I'll move we close nominations.
Do we have a second to close nominations?
Second.
All right, we'll start in district order for the nomination as stated. Commissioner Ruane.
Yes.
Commissioner Sandelli.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammond.
Yes.
Commissioner Greenwell.
Yes.
Commissioner Pendergrass.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Chair.
The hallmark of our democracy.
That's it.
The peaceful transfer of power. We'll be marching on the steps of the airport later. Just kidding.
First, I'm honored to chair this board. We have what I consider such great men up here who work tirelessly to try to improve our county, and I'm very proud to be a part of that. So at this time, I'd like to open up nomination for a co-chair. Do I have a nomination?
Commissioner Wayne.
I will second.
And I'll move, we close nominations.
Okay. All right, so congratulations, Commissioner Wayne.
Thank you.
Sir. Have a roll call, don't we? Do we roll call that as well?
Voice vote
Kevin?
is fine, Mr. Chairman.
Roll call it, right? Okay, I'm sorry. I will mess up a few times today. It's very difficult to follow this man, by the way. He is very smooth and good looking, by the way, I must mention.
I'll get the check in the mail later.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Hit a home run, we're good.
Okay, we'll start, Commissioner Sandelli. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Hammond?
Yes.
I vote yes.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes.
You get to vote for yourself.
There you go.
Which is a little odd, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Vice Chairman Moraine. Okay, meeting begins. You've already started, so I don't have to do that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I apologize for going out of order, but I just want to say real quick, it was a pleasure to be chairman this year and to get to work with the amazing team that we have at the Port Authority. And I'm sure it's no coincidence that Ben sent his letter as my term as chairman. I'm just joking, of course. No, seriously, in all seriousness, this is a tough year to navigate at the airport. And, you know, I think we're going to see later as we talk about the financials, this team handled it with expertise and care. And we managed to make it through a year following a hurricane, which we knew we would see tourism go down and seats go down and passenger counts go down. And yet we managed to get the budget balanced, and we managed to handle expenses and everything like that. And I think a lot of that is owed to our executive director and his team and leadership. So
Yes.
thank you for the opportunity to be chair for this last year and work with y'all. Thank you, commissioners.
Okay, at this time, I will introduce Mr. Siegel.
Yes, thank you.
Floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item on the agenda now is staff recommendations, and I'd like to recognize Ethan Krupp. Ethan, are you here? Can you stand up, please? Lucky you. I'd like to recognize Ethan, our Senior Manager of Maintenance and Administration, who just recently earned his MBA in a concentration of Business Analytics from FGCU's Looker College of Business. Funding for his degree was made through a scholarship awarded to Ethan from the American Association of Airport Executives. I'd like to just congratulate Ethan on this significant achievement, and obviously all the hard work that he puts into the airport. He's a great asset to our team, so I just wanted to congratulate Ethan on that. Thank you, Ethan. And now we can take it back to the consent agenda, Mr. Chair.
Okay. At this time, we will take up the consent agenda. Commissioner Sandelli, do you have any items to pull?
No.
Commissioner Hammond?
I have none.
Commissioner Rain?
I have none.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
None.
And I have none. Okay,
Move approval of the balance of the consent agenda.
Second.
okay. I have Commissioner Hammond to approve the consent agenda, and a second from Commissioner Rain. Do I have any objections? Oh, I'm sorry, I gotta open up public comment. I told you I was gonna mess up more than once, and
That's
we
the
have
hard
public
part.
comment, and we have Marcia Ellis. I have your card, ma'am. I see it, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. I just wanted to briefly comment on item number 13 in regard to the construction manager general contractor services. I was here at the last meeting for the presentations, and I just want to speak from the perspective of a member of the public. In the review of those, the various proposals that were brought forward, I've reflected upon it as someone who lives relatively, close to the airport as your neighbor to the south. And I was very impressed by the company that had someone on staff that was familiar with risk management, that had experience in those emergency services, because this is a public safety building. And I know that there are risk management plans and special responsibilities to protect public health, life, and safety, and environmental justice concerns that come for the surrounding property owners. And I just, even though that particular company was not selected, I just value knowing that that is being addressed in the design, the layout of the building, and hopefully in the management and the staff going forward when it comes into fruition in our community, and how much I respect that experience and how important I think it is to look at risk management. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ellis. Would anyone else like to speak on the consent agenda? If you do, raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment. Back to the board. Do we have any discussion on the consent agenda at this time? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion from Commissioner Hammond to approve. I have a second from Commissioner Wayne. Do I have any objections? No objections. At this time, consent agenda passes unanimous 5-0. Okay, we'll move to the administrative agenda. I will recognize our Executive Director, Ben Siegel, to introduce item number 14.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 14 requests the board approve our annual reconciliation of our rates and charges and airline fee settlement and revenue sharing, and I'd like to ask Mr. McGonigal to further explain the item. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Brian McGonigal. Yeah, this is, like Ben said, this is our annual reconciliation with the airline agreement. Throughout the year, we were tracking passengers closely and reporting it to you. We're actually down at one point, we're down 18% in passengers. We ended up 13% down at the end of the year, which was not a surprise with Hurricane Ian. And with the decrease in passengers, we saw a decrease in terminal concessions, terminal restaurants, and the rent-a-cars. But we weren't surprised seeing those decreases. There was a couple of outlying revenues that did really well. Investment income came in, that's money we earned in the bank, came in $8 million over budget. And the parking lot came in $4 million over budget. The parking demand has remained strong. So throughout the year, as we were tracking, we told the departments to spend. We gave them the option. We didn't need to pull any money back from the departments. They spent 95% of our operating. We usually spend about 97. Our payroll came in. We actually spent 101% of our payroll last year due to Hurricane Ian. We spent $1.1 million on disaster pay. This is 2.0 disaster pay for our employees that work so hard during the storm. So all in, the numbers came out really well. When we reconciled all the numbers, our cost per EP that we budgeted was $735. Our actual came in at $707, which is really good. Our net funds remaining after all calculations was $11.4 million. So 60% to the airport is $6.8 million, and the airlines will be getting their 40% of $4.6 million. Our auditors reviewed all the numbers before you today. They completely agree. With approval today, we'll be issuing airlines refunds in the next couple of weeks. So it was a good year.
Okay, at this time, does we have any questions for staff at this time?
Okay. Brian, you were saying the airport, the airlines refund, you said $4.5 million?
To the airlines, yes, sir, 4.6 to the airlines and 6.8 to us.
What were those numbers? Do you remember the last couple of years, what we did for them? Because I know we made some changes last year.
I don't, it was significantly more than that. I don't. Commissioner, I don't have that in front of me.
I can get it later, that's fine.
I can, yeah. It was, yeah, I'll get it to you later. Thank you. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff at this time?
I'll move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Second that?
So we move approval, do I have a second? Did someone second?
Ruang.
Okay, I didn't hear it. Okay. Does anyone else in the public wish to speak on this item at this time? Okay, seeing none, so I will close, public comment. I have a motion from Commissioner Hammond, a second from Commissioner Wayne. Do we have any further discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objections, motion passes 5-0. Mr. Bensigo, please introduce item number 15.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 15 requests the board use a contract for the purchase of office supplies from Staples, and I'd ask Mr. McGonigal to further explain the item.
Yeah, thank you. Staples contract has been in place since 2020. We locked in with some competitive pricing. We spend about $130,000 a year on office supplies. This agreement has a 1-year extension. We're exercising this extension. It's gonna go from April of 24 to April of 25. We're asking board approval for that, for a 1-year extension.
This time we have any, Commissioner, we have any questions for staff?
Move the item.
Second. Public comment?
Okay, I'm going to that. Okay, we have public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this item? They jumped me. One, okay. I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Pendergrass, a second from Commissioner Hammond. Any objections? Seeing none, item is unanimous, 5-0. Mr. Bensigo, please introduce item number 17. Or 16.
16.
16, I apologize.
Yes, sir. Thank
16.
you. Items 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 are all new use agreements that we've negotiated with the airlines. I'd like to have Mr. McGonigal explain some of the key business terms of those agreements. I'd just like to say that this has been a 2-year effort of our team putting together these deals. We're very, very excited about bringing these forward to you today. And we do have a walk-on later on the agenda that includes Delta's signed agreement. And with that, Brian, if you want to go ahead and further explain it.
Yeah,
Thank
sure. Yeah, as Ben said, we've been negotiating for 2 years with the airlines. This is a really good agreement. It's a 10-year agreement. We usually have 5. Some of the key changes that we did with this agreement, it extends the current agreement to September of this year, and then it goes out 10 more years with the new agreement. Some of the key changes that we did, the old agreement, to be a signatory carrier, you needed a minimum of 4,000 square foot space. Now the minimum, we're putting a dollar amount on it. So to be a signatory airline, they need to pay us $1.25 million. We established a new cost center called the Baggage Handling System Cost Center. Prior to the old agreement, we didn't recover 100% of our baggage handling fees. It costs about $4 million a year. We now have a new BHS cost center. It's very standard throughout airports to have this, so the airlines were not surprised. It increased our capital expenditure threshold from $100,000 to $300,000. And then we negotiated with the airlines for their revenue sharing. The first 3 years will be 70% to us, 30% to the airlines, and the last 7 years will be where we are now, 60-40. The airlines ask for a give back clause, so after 5 years, if they want to give back space, we allowed that in there. They can't give back more than 50%. Highly unlikely that they'll do it, but they really ask, hey, 5 years in, can you give us a clause in case we want to give back space? We're happy to do that. And probably the most significant thing is our coverage is now, coverage is 1.25. The airlines are guaranteeing us 1.4 coverage. This is a significant benefit to us. It creates financial feasibility, it guarantees our financial commitment and the airline commitment to our CIP for the next 10 years. So we're real pleased with this. It's a big deal. I think that's all I got. Do you have anything else?
At this time, the board have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, one
Yes,
question.
Commissioner.
Questions for County Attorney Wesh. Since items 16 through 21 are all similar items, could we pass all 16 through 21 together in one motion?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, then that will be my motion to approve items 16 through 21.
And I will second that.
Okay, all right. So I have, allowed public comment,
And this would be on items 16 through 21.
item 16 through 21, public comment. Anyone want to speak on any of those items, please raise your hand. I see none. Okay.
I guess I'm not public. As part of the ASNC, I just need to tell you how we just felt this was an awesome coup for this port, because it really says these airlines want to be here to make this kind of commitment. So, Ben, I don't know if this is your departing gift or what, but it just, how it came together with you departing, go out on top, right? Because this, I think, is the top of the mountain to get something like this.
And they don't have to mess with it for 10 years. Saving money
They're-
when
they're
you're not even
committed.
here.
Yeah.
I just want to add thank you to
Very good
staff
job.
and the ASC for doing everything, because it shows the commitment to the airlines, but it's also shows our market why the draw is here and the commitment for the airlines. They know they can continue to come here, so it gives us a great opportunity in the future as we expand the airport. So again, thank you to all the staff that worked on this.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner.
I'd also like to, the growth is one thing, but you commit something like this based on trust, based on
Right.
relationships. And I think that's the strength of this team, strength of the airport. It's airplanes, it's all the other things, but it's relationships. And Ben, thank you very much.
Any further comments?
You and the team.
All right, do we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Hammond, a second from Commissioner Pendergrass, was that right? Ruane. Yep. I apologize.
I look similar.
I tried, but he beat me.
I recognize you, right, okay. Second from Commissioner Wayne, at this time, any objections? Seeing no objections, items 16 through 21, is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Is approved, unanimous. So, let me get back to you. All right. Hey, I gotta follow the script.
22.
All right, item number 22, Mr. Siegel, please introduce item number 62.
Item
20.
Yeah, item 22, request the board approve the annual performance reviews for the executive director. And I don't know if you have, Brian, if you had any additional comments or
I
questions.
didn't. No, I know probably some board discussion. And thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could make a motion to approve with a 6% increase.
Second. Okay, any objections?
No, I'd just like to make a comment. It certainly seems like, I don't know what happened, but my evaluation is not in this. Ben, you have exceeded any of my expectations. It was an honor when we first got to sit down and talk about you taking over this position, talking about, the contract and everything we did. I'm sorry to see you leave from the organization point of view. Personally, I'm happy for you and all you've committed to this organization. I look forward to, obviously, continue to at least stay in contact with you. You've been a great person to try to get to know, and I wish you all the success in your retirement and anything that you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, well, we'll open up for public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this item? Marcia Ellis.
Marcia Ellis for the record. I would have liked to have dug a little bit more into this item, look at the criteria for performance evaluation, self-evaluation, et cetera. I was unable to get the live links to work. I did put it off to the last minute, so I'm still having, from the public perspective, some usability issues with the airport website and the functionality to access the information. I do have information on other items that I printed from the last meeting. At the conclusion of the last meeting, I spoke with Mr. Siegel specifically about outreach to the public and how that any type of self-evaluation or performance evaluation should look honestly and realistically at the lack of outreach and the lack of public involvement in the development of the airport when we are in a period of rapid intensification of uses here. And that I ask that any performance evaluation, if not already a fundamental part of this review, also include how effective is the messaging and the engagement with the public, and that metrics reflect that input. And we set some realistic goals going forward as we welcome a new executive director in the future, and as we chart a new course in 2024, that we make that a priority to work as partners with our neighbors. So I appreciate the opportunity to bring this forward into your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Anyone else wish to speak on item number 22? Okay, I will close public comment.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Mayor, call on the county attorney to survey the clarity that the port director is an employee of the Port Commission, and we are the body that does the evaluations based upon performance. So, county attorney, can you respond to that?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, county attorney, you recognize.
Board members, as Commissioner Pendergrass has indicated, Mr. Siegel, as the executive director, is one of 4 direct reports to you. The other 3 are the county hearing officer, myself, and the county manager. As one of your direct employees, you all have the management authority and oversight over we 4, including Mr. Siegel. The performance evaluation system has been in place for a number of years, has been readily accepted and utilized by the Board of Port Commissioners for that period of time. We have received no direction or indication that there's anything in that system that needs to be addressed. And in the absence thereof, it is wholly within your discretion to evaluate your employee upon the criteria that are set in your educated and judgment going forward. If there are any changes that need to be made, please advise. If not, it is wholly within your management authority as the elected Board of Port Commissioners to evaluate your employee as you see fit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rain.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, I appreciate your explanation going into that. Again, as I alluded to earlier, we sat down, Ben, when you actually were going from interim to permanent. I was the chair at the time. We were very specific. I think it was a pretty detailed conversation. My recollection of exactly what our expectations were. 5 of us have all indicated you exceeded our expectations. So I appreciate everyone has an opportunity, and I think you, of all people, will always strive to make sure you can do even better than you did. And when you exceed 5 people's expectations, it certainly sets a bar pretty high. No one's perfect, and I think you would probably say that. But honestly, from the person that sat down with you and had this conversation, negotiated your contract, you've done everything that we could potentially ask for. And again, I echo what I said earlier. You exceeded all 5 of our expectations. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? No? Okay, at this time, I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Pendergrass, a second from Commissioner Sandelli. Rain made it, right? Kevin made it, yeah. Sandelli, Commissioner
I'll
Sandelli?
take it.
All right, you're gonna take it, all right. Any objections?
Bigger than me.
No objections? Motion moves 5-0. Congratulations.
All right, thank you.
All right. Mr. Siegel, please introduce item number 23.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 23, request the board approve a piggyback agreement with Galls for the purchase of police department uniforms and equipment, and Mr. Hennigan will further explain the item. Thank you.
Good morning. For the record, Stephen Hennigan. Administrative item 23, request the board approve a piggyback agreement with Galls utilizing pricing from a City of Tallahassee contract for the purchase of police department uniforms and equipment. This is a 3-year initial contract with the potential of 2 one-year extensions.
Any questions at this time, commissioners?
Gladly move the item.
Second. We have approval from Commissioner Wayne, a second from Commissioner Hammond. Any public comment on item number 23? Seeing none, I'll repeat it. We have a approval from Commissioner Wayne, a second from Commissioner Hammond. Any further discussions? Any objections? Seeing none, item number 23 moves 5-0, unanimous. Mr. Siegel, please introduce item number 24.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Item 24 requests the board authorize a contract between the Lee County Port Authority and Passarella Associates to provide general planning and environmental services. And I would ask Ms. Underhill to further explain this item.
Good morning, commissioners and committee members. For the record, Emily Underhill. For item number 24, At the November Joint Board meeting, the board endorsed the ranking of the top 2 firms to perform planning and environmental services under a continuing contract. Passarella and Associates was ranked as the #1 top-ranked firm, and as a result, staff has negotiated a 3-year contract with Passarella. Pursuant to FAA guidelines, any work that receives federal funding will be assigned to the top-ranked firm. At this time, staff recommends approval of a contract with Passarella and Associates. Any individual task above board thresholds will be brought before the Special Management Committee and the board for approval.
At this time, staff have any questions?
I'll move approval, Mr.
Board.
Chairman.
Okay, board. Hammond, I have a second.
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Sandelli. Okay. Open for public comment. Marcia Ellis.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this item number, Marcia Ellis for the record. I did give comment at the last meeting back in December and regarding the conflict of interest clause, which is on page 22, Article 26.1, which states that the consultant agrees not to perform any work for a third party related to development of the international airport or Page Field, specifically work related to any property directly abutting either the airport boundary or the boundary of the South Florida International Airport Mitigation Park, within the runway protection zone of either airport, or within the Southwest Florida International Airport noise overlay zone. And there is a conflict of interest because Passarella does do consulting work for the Lennar property, which is within the noise zone. So I'm just calling this matter to attention because we have responsibilities to protect our endangered and imperiled species. We have conditions of a biop that was completed in 2017 that's very specific to protecting those species. And it's my position that perhaps consulting services for the airport could be served better with a neutral party or fresh eyes. So I'm bringing this attention to this conflict of interest forward for consideration. Thank you.
Do I have any other public comment at this time? Seeing none, I will close public comment. I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Hammond, a second from Commissioner Sandelli. Any discussion?
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, if I may, so obviously we had a accusation made there, then let's turn to our staff and ask a question. Whose job is it to do due diligence on this contract before the item comes to us for approval to check for conflicts of interest, and was that performed?
Yeah, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so it was performed, and I know it was reviewed by discussed between our development department and the county attorney's office. And if Andrea had any comments regarding that, I would ask that she please address the board. Thank you.
Excellent.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, there was a review done by procurement. It is required under the procedures manual for procurement to do a check. I also spoke with Mark Fisher about it, and he did indicate that a check was done, a background check for conflicts was done.
Okay, do you have the findings? Could anybody share with?
There was no finding of any conflict whatsoever.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion?
Just one other clarification, just for the record. Just if you wouldn't mind, could you indicate Mark Fisher's title?
Okay, let's say that again.
Yeah. Mark is Senior Deputy Executive Director of Development.
Thank you. Thank you, appreciate it.
Yes.
The management committee did have a detailed discussion of this item, and we had the same finding as we just heard. We did not see a conflict.
Okay. Any other discussion? Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. At this time, I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Hammond, a second from Commissioner Sandelli. Any objection? Seeing none, item moves 5-0. Please, Mr. Siegel, introduce item number 25.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 25 requests the board authorize a contract between the Lee County Port Authority and Johnson Engineering to provide general planning and environmental services as well. So Emily, if you could.
Yes, and for the record, Emily Underhill. I'm not sure if I did that last time. For item number 25, as mentioned in the prior item, at the November Joint Board meeting, the board endorsed the ranking of the top 2 firms to perform planning and environmental services under a continuing contract. Johnson Engineering ranked as the second most qualified firm. As it is the intent to award this contract to 2 firms, staff has negotiated a 3-year contract with Johnson Engineering as well to provide planning and environmental services through a continuing contract. At this time, staff requests approval of a contract with Johnson Engineering. Any individual task above board thresholds will be brought before the Special Management Committee and the board for approval.
At this time, we have any questions for staff?
I'll move the item, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Rain, a
Public
second from
comment.
Commissioner Hammond. I will open for public comment. Marcia Ellis.
Thank you. My concern for this contract is really the same, just because Johnson Engineering is involved again in consulting services with a number of projects that are abutting and surrounding the area and fit that clause of the conflict of interest. This contract was not attached to the item before, but there's just similar concerns.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ellis. Do I have any other public comment at this time on item number 25? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do we have any discussion?
Yeah,
Board?
Mr.
Yes, sir,
Chairman, then just so that we do our due diligence, then could we answer the same questions then? Did we run through the similar checks for conflicts of interest on this contract, and what were the findings?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Mayor.
Mr. Siegel.
Yes, sir. The same review takes place for all of our contracts. So the answer would be yes to your question.
Okay, so, and had they found any conflicts, then under that criteria, they would have brought them back to us?
That is correct, and there were none found.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Siegel. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Wayne, a second from Commissioner Hammond. Any objections? Seeing none, motion is approved, unanimous, 5-0. Mr. Siegel, please introduce item number 26.
Item number 26, request the board accept the state grant for the terminal expansion project here at RSW, and I would ask Ms. Underhill to explain this item.
This item is seeking approval to accept an FDOT fiscal year 23-24 grant to be used for eligible costs under the RSW terminal expansion project that is currently under construction. Port Authority staff continues to work with FDOT to program additional funds to reduce the Port Authority's costs associated with this project. This money supplements prior grants that were previously received, brings FDOT's participation to date, totaling $54,898,121. So staff recommends approval accepting this grant in the amount of $15,296,066.
I enthusiastically move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Enthusiastically. Okay, any further questions at this point from the board? No? All right. Any public comment on item number 26? Seeing none. I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Hammond. I have a second from Commissioner Wayne. Any further discussion?
Just a comment, Ben, I know during our briefing, you certainly indicated this amount, but I think it's not only commendable, but really exceeding our expectations. What's the total amount that we've been awarded in grants now, based on this? You know, there was 15 million.
For this project?
Correct.
54 million.
Thank you very much. I think it's really important for the record to understand that we received grants to a total of $54 million. Thank you. Great job.
Any objections? Seeing none, motion is approved, unanimous, 5-0. Mr. Siegel, please introduce item number 27.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 27, request the board accept the state grant from the Florida Department of Transportation for the rehabilitation of runway 624, and I'd request Ms. Underhill explain this item as well.
Item 27 is seeking approval to accept an FDOT grant to be used for eligible costs under the RSW Runway 624 Rehabilitation Project, whereby the recently selected A&E consultant will begin project formulation efforts. This amendment adds $125,705 in state funds in fiscal year 23-24 to be used towards 50% of the eligible costs for the preliminary design of the rehabilitation of Runway 624. Port Authority staff continues to work with FDOT to program additional funding for design and construction costs associated with the project. This brings FDOT's participation to date totaling $163,205. Staff recommends approval accepting this grant in the amount of $125,705.
Any questions?
Move
Commissioner?
approval, sir.
Second?
Approval from Mr. Lorraine, second from Commissioner Hammond. Do we have any public comment at this time? Seeing no public comment, any further discussion? No further discussion. I have a approval from Commissioner Lorraine, a second from Commissioner Hammond. Any objections? Seeing none, item is unanimous, 5-0. Mr. Siegel, please introduce item number 28.
Yes, sir, thank you. Item 28 requests the board authorize a contract amendment with Michael Baker International in the amount of $236,000 for the design of our, some baggage handling improvements. And Ms. Underhill can further explain this item.
Yes, for item number 28, in 2016, the legacy baggage handling system at RSW underwent an optimization and recapitalization program, which was initiated to improve the system's efficiency and throughput. Since the 2016 improvements, RSW has seen increased baggage volume through an aging baggage handling system. In 2023, the Port Authority retained its consultant to prepare a baggage handling system improvement study report, which provided a high-level pre-engineering report with estimated cost to implement various system improvements. The main objective of the recommended efforts is to provide operational assurance that legacy system operations will be sustained in the short term until the new Concourse E baggage handling systems are online and operational. The Port Authority, along with DeFuku, who's the entity that holds the operations and maintenance O&M contract for the baggage handling system, have concurred with the suggested improvements. In order to provide a design for these upgrades, staff has negotiated a design scope of work with Michael Baker, Inc. Staff asked that the board approve this contract amendment with Michael Baker totaling $236,612 to perform these design services.
Commissioner, we have any questions at this time?
Move the item.
Second. Okay, we have motion to approve the item, Commissioner Pendergrass, and a second, Commissioner Hammond. Do we have any public comment on item number 28? Okay, seeing none, I close public comment. Any further discussion? Commissioner Sandelli.
When I first read this, the ejection seat that I sat on in the Navy was from Martin Baker. I was going, what is this? Different name, different company and stuff like that, but got my attention.
Oh, wow.
Side comment, thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I have Commissioner Pendergrass, motion to approve, second Commissioner Hammond. Any objections? Seeing none, motion approves 5-0, unanimous. Mr. Siegel, please introduce item number 29.
Yes, sir. Item 29 requests the board authorize a contract amendment with Owen Ames Kimball in the amount of $1,588,436 to perform CMGC work associated with the fuel farm expansion, and then secondly, approve a total project budget in the amount of just over $2 million. Ms. Underhill, if you could further explain that item.
Yes, for item number 29, Pagefield Airport has recently seen a continuous increase in fuel demand from users of the airport. As previously approved by the board, a design for a new 30,000-gallon Jet A tank and required accessories and concrete structures has been completed. Owen Ames Kimball, as the board selected CMGC, has completed pre-construction services and has successfully bid the project. Staff asks that the board first endorse the contract amendment in the amount of $1,588,436 to provide for fuel farm improvements, and second, approve a total project budget in the amount of $2,001,693.40.
Commissioners, any questions at this time? Okay, seeing none, I will open for public comment. Does anyone wish to make public comment on item number 29? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. We're moving from Commissioner Pendergrass for approval, second from Commissioner Hammond. Any objections? Seeing none, motion approves 5-0. That concludes our administrative agendas. this time, we will move on to the walk-ons. We have two walk-on items. Mr. Siegel, please introduce the first one.
Sir, thank you. First walk-on item, request the board approve the airline use agreement and lease agreement that we spoke about earlier. And this is Delta Airlines signed agreement. We just didn't get it in time to actually get it on the agenda with the other ones. So be happy to answer any questions, but it is the identical agreement that was approved earlier by the board.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Siegel. Any questions this time?
I just want to confirm it's the same agreement as the other ones, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you.
Move the approval of the item.
Second.
Okay. Okay, at this time, we'll open for any public comment. Any public comment on the walk-on item number one? Okay, seeing none, I have Commissioner Pendergrass move the item, a second from Commissioner Wayne. Any further discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, item is unanimous, 5-0. Mr. Siegel, please introduce item number two.
Yeah. Item number two, I'll just have Mr. McGonigal. Do you want to go ahead and introduce the item?
Yeah, I sure will.
Thanks.
Yeah, number two, we were asked to put this on as a walk-on. Request the board acknowledge the retirement of Ben, the executive director, on April 1st, 2024, and have a discussion on the next course of actions to replace the executive director position. Thank you.
Any
Mr. Chairman,
questions?
Our office specifically recommends denial of this item.
Enthusiastically.
Do I have a second?
Enthusiastically.
Thank you, sir. Okay, any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, thank
Yes.
you. Yeah, I would definitely second what Richard said. We're gonna miss you, Ben. It's been a great time, working with you. You did everything, as Commissioner Ruane said earlier, to exceed our expectations. You enhanced the communication and the relationship with the Board of Port Commissioners. You took it to a level that it had never been, previously, and so we thank you for that. We're excited. It's very common in corporate world to do some succession planning. I guess that's how I'd like to start off this conversation. Have you and your team, which we highlighted earlier as a fantastic team, done any succession planning in the event that this scenario were to happen?
Yeah, so part of my plan about 3 years ago, when we had made some changes in leadership with bringing in our chief operating officer, I've been working closely with our chief operating officer. And part of my plan was originally to be here for longer, obviously, but those things changed. But certainly working with Mr. Hennigan was that he was certainly going to be ready to take on, the role at some point in the future if that was the board's desire. Obviously, it's ultimately the board's options, to make those decisions. But certainly was working very closely with him, and I know that he has the senior leadership support for that role. So that was where I was heading as your executive director. I know things have obviously my tenure here ended up changing a little bit in terms of my opportunities, but certainly that was my thought process, and obviously it's up to the board. However, ultimately they like to.
Could you elaborate a little on the process that you went through when you hired Mr. Hennigan 3 years ago?
Yeah, so Mr. Hennigan was hired through a, did we use a search? No, we did not. We actually did. We did our own advertising for that, and accepted applications for that based on certain minimum qualifications. So it was all done in-house, and Mr. Hennigan rose to the top from probably anywhere from 35 to 40 different applicants, I would say, from around the country that applied for the position. So
okay,
and the entire senior leadership team, I took their feedback obviously in the selection, but ultimately it was my decision in terms of who was hired.
good deal. All right, thank you for answering those questions. Mr. Chairman, I'll just throw this out there, but I'm eager to hear from all of you guys. So it sounds like we care a lot about stability here. That's one of the things that we highlighted when we promoted Dave Harner on the county side to county manager. And in this case, it sounds like we've got somebody who there was a search that was done for. They went outside, they found somebody from a bigger or different market who now has had 3 years of working successfully with us, and has brought in some really good ideas. So, I would, if it's up to the board, I'd be interested in naming this person as an interim after Mr. Siegel's retirement takes effect, and allowing this person a chance to do similar to what Ben did, work with us for a year as the interim director, and see if we can continue the wonderful things that we have going. I mean, certainly when you look at the 10-year airline signatory agreements that we did here, we've got a real path for stability here. We've got projects lined up, expansions of the airport lined up that Mr. Hennigan was actually part of helping to plan and work on, so he's intimately familiar with those. So that's kind of just where my head's at. But Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back so that you can hear from other.
Commissioner Pendergrass.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Ben, congratulations again to you and your family, and, we'd love to keep you here any longer, but I know things happen, and so congratulations to you. Kind of tag off what Commissioner Hammond said. Yeah, we got a great thing going on here too, but we also have a lot of issues as far as this airport continues to expand. We have a lot of work going on here. We are running over a year behind with the construction and expansion, and it's nobody's fault for that directly because of labor and everything else. But I think we're selling ourselves short if we don't. If Steve's here now with the current team being interim, that's fine. But I think we owe it to ourselves and to the Port Authority to expand our search, because when he applied for that job, like you said, he applied, it wasn't a search, he applied. He didn't apply for your position at the time. He applied for the position that was advertised. So I think as we as a board, as somebody that works directly for the board and special management, I think it'd be great for us to have opportunity to see who else is out there that would want to come forward for that position to expand. As this airport continues to grow, the 10-year contracts we got now, so we know we're going to continue to expand. I think we should at least explore that opportunity to see if there's somebody out there that can bring some newer, fresher ideas to the airport.
Thank you, Commissioner Pendergrass. Any further discussion? Commissioner Rain.
Please, thank you. Listen, Ben, I first and foremost will echo what everyone has said. It's been a joy to work with you, and honestly, it's a privilege. I've been in corporate America and certainly worked in that field for a long time, and you've done everything we could. Succession planning is really important. It's something that we do, and we've advised many different companies that obviously work with my other firm, and it's really important to do so. I think I echo what Commissioner Hammond said, some of the things Commissioner Pendergrass said. Succession plan is really important. Your input is very important. You came on as an interim. It certainly seemed to work out. I think that certainly seems to be more than reasonable to at least start that approach. I'm not opposed to certainly going out and looking at other candidates, but at the very least, we should certainly have a conversation about an interim. And I like, obviously promoting from within. It's worked out well. Dave Harden has done a great job. I'd like to certainly explore the possibility of interim, and let's see how that works out.
Commissioner Sandelli.
I feel the same. I think.
Go ahead, Commissioner Sandelli.
Okay.
Scott.
All right. No, I feel the same. I think Ben was a great example of promoting within. There's a lot of moving pieces that are going on right now. I would encourage, look at the interim basis, encourage that individual to throw his hat in the ring and stuff like that. But I do think the industry is changing, and in a lot of different ways. And I think to look outside and see who else is available. We're getting a lot of interest for the state of Florida and a lot of interest, for our marketplace. And I'd be interesting to see what somebody else has to say as well, to make sure that we're comfortable in the end that we have the best resources. We have, and it very well be from within.
Thank you, Commissioner
Mr.
Sandelli.
Chairman, if I could make a motion to approve the walk-in item, accepting the president's retirement of Ben Siegel. He has authority under his current position to make the interim under the current working condition, but also like to add to that we will start the process as direct staff to start a search process as far as obtaining a firm to do a search, a national search for the position.
Okay. Scott.
That's the motion.
Okay, that's your motion.
No, I recall when Ben took the position, and I was opposed to spending six figures to do a national search when I felt we had a person right here who had great qualifications. And I think we're in that same position again. I don't know why there would be any rush when we do have a qualified candidate to serve as at least interim director until such time, and on a probationary time or period. You know, before we go authorizing an expenditure of six figures, I'm sure, to do a national search. I don't know what the rush would be to go out and explore the market when Ben has confidence in his recommendation, and I think we owe it to our budget to be protective of the concept of hiring from within if it warrants the effort to explore, then we can always do that in the future.
Yes, please.
I'd like to echo those comments. I support Commissioner Hammond's recommendation. We've had the opportunity to work 3 years very closely with Mr. Hannigan. He's done an outstanding job. His communication skills are excellent, and he has great rapport with all of the different personnel that run the airport. And not only that, but we have about $1.6 billion worth of infrastructure projects going on right now to where we need continuity. And I think, like we did with Ben, Ben's done an outstanding job. I really am very sad to see Ben leave. I've known Ben for a long time before I was on this board. And I remember when I first met Ben, I was asking, what's the airport board do? And he explained it all to me and everything. But you know, we have an opportunity to have continuity. I think the interim idea is an excellent idea where we give Mr. Hannigan a chance to prove himself here to us. And so I echo Scott's comments that we were not in favor of spending six figures to hire somebody when we hired Ben. And I think we are in the same situation now, and I would support Commissioner Hammond's recommendation.
So let me go back to my motion. I had a motion on the floor. The motion, let me clarify, my motion also would, actually, the board would make, that motion would conclude that Steve would be the acting interim now, but was a search actively starting now, though. That was my motion.
May I comment? Okay. I do think times are a little different, you know, when we step back, because from the time that the commissioner or the Port Authority gave us the direction to work with staff to hire someone, then I think COVID came about, and everything was just kind of up in the air with the economy with COVID. And we had somebody with us that had been here over 30 years that knew this place inside and out, and there was the stability. And we'd all worked with Ben one time or another through this. And I applaud Ben that, again, he's done exactly what a good business person would do and have a management succession. So I appreciate that he's already done that part of the homework. And if he says Steve is the qualified person to step in as an interim, I couldn't agree more from what we've seen. But I think we've only seen about 3 years of Steve versus what we've seen of Ben. And it takes, when you do a for real search, it takes a good 9 months, probably 6 to 9 months, to really do it effectively, to do it right. I would hope that Steve would apply if we do this, if you direct us to do this search, that he would apply, and he very well could rise to the top. But then I think we would all be very satisfied, because the port, with what we've got going on right now, it's big. But it's all under contract already. These agreements are already under contract. So I do think it's very good that Steve and staff, Mark, you've got some other real depth in the staff here, that they keep focused on what we've got. Let you, staff, work with Ben, whatever, go and do the search, because we're by this this new agreement's coming about, that says, okay, we're getting to the top. Now we've got to go above the top. You know, when you get when you get at the top, it's harder to stay at the top than it was to get to the top. I think we all know that. So I think that's the reason why I would, as the advisory to the board, advise, in my opinion, that I would want to do a search, just for that reason. Because when we get there and a new concourse coming on, there's going to be more things to deal with. So, and I would, you know, Ben, I'm sure his credentials, Steve's are probably very, very strong. I've never seen them. Don't know. And when Ben exits, and he has to exit, I guess, on April 1, because when I talked to him, I said, "You're what?" And, you know, well, can't you just do consulting, you know, throughout this whole search process? No, I can't do that. No, I can't do that. So I thought I'd call Mike Welsh and say, or Richard over there and say, find a way that he can do consulting, but I'm teasing. I wouldn't do that. But anyway, that's my advisory capacity coming back to the board.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As chairman of the ASMC, we've worked close with Mr. Hannigan. We had good success promoting Ben through the ranks. If we do this search, and I'm not opposed to it either way, I think we have a candidate, but if that's your wishes to do the search, that you would give deference to Mr. Hannigan as we go through this and give him a few points for knowing the lay of the land and everything that's going on. We have so much happening, and we are at such a good place that I just don't think we had that much success when we did a national search, and I would hope that a personality and a sales job doesn't override the hard work and experience of somebody that's in the trenches with us now, and that'd be my only comment.
Okay. I guess it's my turn. So I think both sides make very legitimate points. We obviously have a tremendous amount of construction going on. I do have some concerns there with the delays and some of the issues that we have, which I think requires absolute full attention from the port staff. So I'm kind of in the middle, to be honest with you. I feel like a search makes sense. I also am much a believer in promoting within. So I think if we you know, that what Commissioner Pendergrass is suggesting makes sense, because it does take a long time, and I don't know whether we set a timeline here today. I do believe he deserves the opportunity to be an interim and continue on with what's going on. I believe he'll do a fine job, but I also would like to make sure that we are making the right decision today, and I don't want to make it on the fly. So I'm just right in the middle of what we're doing here. So I just wanted my feelings to be known. So at this time, any other discussion, Commissioner Rain?
Just a couple of points. I appreciate everyone's comment. Ben, what's Mr. Hannigan's title?
What's that?
What's Mr. Hannigan's title?
He is Deputy Executive Director of Aviation, Chief Operating Officer.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thanks. Listen, succession plans are key in any organization. I've had the privilege of working for a subsidiary of Xerox, been involved in this for a long time, been involved in many succession plans. So I appreciate what we're going through. We had the opportunity to approve an awful lot of contracts today that have 10-year. I certainly understood in my briefing that there's opportunities at the 5-year point to certainly have some changes associated with that. We're in the middle of a massive construction project, and honestly, I think continuity is really important. I certainly believe very wholeheartedly the interim situation should take place. I am not opposed to any time that you go out to an outside firm to bring in somebody. I also have been in the situation where I've hired within, I've went outside. There are people that interview great and do a great job of doing, you know, A+ or better than A+ in their interview. I've hired them. We have not worked out, okay? there's no track record. I have nothing to go based on. I have nothing to look forward, other than what recommendations they have. But it's an interview process. Some people articulate well, some people don't, some people interview well. I certainly am very strongly in the position that we go with the interim. I don't necessarily feel compelled that we need to go out and do a search right now. There's every opportunity to pivot very quickly. We certainly see this, but there's an awful lot of institutional knowledge that's here. There's a learning curve that someone's going to have to come into. The industry's changing, but many of the things we have, there's institutional knowledge that's here. So I am certainly in favor of really staying with the interim and not necessarily going out and doing an exploration at this point in time. At any point in time, as a board, we feel like that's necessary. We can certainly do that, but that's my opinion on this.
Thank you, Commissioner Rang. Any other comment, Commissioner Sendelli?
I kind of break it down into two parts. The stability, first of all, for Steve, your best endorsement is right down there. I mean, I put a lot of credence in that. And so I think that will help you. But you also have earned, that endorsement yourself. And I think that's to your benefit, so on and so forth. I do think, though, I've lived in Anchorage, I lived in Seattle, I lived in Cincinnati, I lived in Tampa. And I've seen the industry, and being associated with the aviation side, I've seen the industry change. Not only the industry itself within the aircraft and stuff like that, but I always say in Tampa, it's now a mall connected to an airport. It has changed tremendously. We are at a point where we're going to make decisions on runways, additional airlines, and so on and so forth. I would like to hear from somebody, and it may just be an interview process, but I want to hear those ideas. I want to see where it's going. There's a lot to be said for the stability here, and Steve, if you rise to the top of that, congratulations. But I'm in favor of the stability piece, but also I want to see what else is out there.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes,
I noticed a couple things real quick. First of all, the motion doesn't have a second. Secondly, I don't know that I fully understand what the motion is, so if it could be restated, that would be helpful. But before we do that, Mr. Chairman, would it be appropriate to give maybe Mr. Hennigan like 3 minutes to come and just give us like a brief history of his work history? Because I think you'll find it's pretty fascinating, including time working in Houston as the #2 in Houston, which much larger airport system. I believe they probably landed as many people in a day as we do in a year. So maybe, Mr. Chairman, if you don't object, could we call Mr. Hennigan to the podium to give us a brief?
I would absolutely agree
bio?
with that. I would love to see that, please.
Good thought.
Yeah.
Hello.
Morning.
Good morning.
See, my heart's beating. So background. So, as we discussed long ago, I thought I'd be flying 747s for United. 9/11 happened. That didn't pan out. I am a commercial pilot. I went to Embry-Riddle, have a degree in aviation business. I have cargo experience, multiple years with FedEx, airline experience. Long ago, I made a decision to get back into airports. I started in a comm center in Denver, worked my way up. Worked there for about nine years. Found myself in Houston through promotional opportunity. I was the assistant general manager at George Bush Intercontinental Airport. My voice is shaky. I apologize. So I was the #2 at that airport for several years. At the time, it's a 3-airport system. There's George Bush Intercontinental, Hobby, and Ellington, which is now a spaceport. They reorganized the structure. They did not have a COO. They created a chief of operations position that I was promoted into. So I oversaw 2 airports, actually 2.5. Ellington was kind of that half. It's a spaceport, joint use military, and also general aviation. So I had Hobby as well as George Bush Intercontinental. With that, we talk about construction, we talk about growth. That CIP was about $4.5 billion. I have firsthand experience building multiple terminals. I think it's 3 or 4, which is a lot in the grand scheme based on scope. Air service development, we were very large with international traffic. Probably off the top of my head, about 7 airlines internationally. When we were doing combined, probably close to 60 million passengers a year. So my experience of what's to come with the growth, with the transition from 12 million to 14 more gates, roughly, however many, passengers that is, I have that. And I think importantly, the support of Ben, the support of the team. For me also is while I've been here 3 years, I've been coming to this area for well over 40 years. My first airplane flight was to Fort Myers from Chicago. So while I don't have the tenure that my counterparts have in the room, I have the region in my heart, which I think is very important, which I think was a very important thing, that I extolled to Ben almost 3 years ago. So either way, I'm excited to be able to have the opportunity and still nervous and shaken, but if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
And just one last question, and I let anybody else ask whatever they want as well too, but you shared with me something interesting. Have you been able to bring some of the ideas from the bigger markets like Denver and Houston that you worked in here to be part of our terminal expansions as you've worked on it over the last 3 years?
Yeah, so if you ask, some of my team is here from a planning standpoint, going through the growth that we're going through, we're going to be experiencing something that this complex has never experienced. So we're under construction right now. The look and feel of our front door is going to be vastly different for the next 5 years. How are we planning that? How are we staying ahead? Thankfully, the board approved the maximum product for our maintenance, so we can get all of the new systems and our old systems on board, start tracking, start maintaining, start budgeting, planning for it. Secondary to that, is from an IT standpoint. How are we automating? What's our guest experience? What's that curb to gate? How does that all function? So there's a lot of things, the metrics that we're developing to be able to make data-driven decisions.
Thanks. That concludes my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other commissioners?
How much time have you had to prepare for this interview?
3 seconds.
No, that's it. Fine.
Commissioner Wayne.
Ben, you know what? I wouldn't mind if you could expand a little bit. Obviously, you had the privilege of hiring Steve. You obviously, I'm very impressed as he goes through his background. Certainly had the privilege, as you and I have met several times, not only in this room, but certainly had lunch and talked about the direction. So I'd love to hear some additional comments. I mean, you hired him, you had a vision, you have a succession. I think that's really relevant to this conversation and really important to put on the record.
Sure. Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Sigler.
So, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So, one of the things that resonated with me throughout the interview process 3 years ago is, having been at this airport for so long, I started here when there was, maybe close to 3 million passengers, right? So it was a small airport. Well, I've seen the evolution of this airport. We're a medium-sized airport that's becoming a large medium-sized airport that's probably going to be on the cusp of being a large airport someday. And our team, as experienced as it is, we have grown up in the smaller / medium-sized airport environment. And what resonated with me with Steve is that he was somebody that could bring in that large airport experience. We needed that knowledge because we were starting to go through some growing pains. And we see them and feel them and deal with them every single day. And Steve comes up with a lot of large airport ideas that, quite frankly, we can't attack all at once, that we have to take steps to. But for me, what's important is that we're thinking about them, because we need to start taking steps in those directions. And we can't make some of these large airport decisions today. We don't have the financial capabilities to make them like a large airport would, but we need to be taking those steps. Mm-hmm. And having somebody like Steve at the table with the experience that he brings has been incredibly valuable for myself and I think our team, because we've all grown up in a medium-sized, small to medium-sized airport that is now becoming something much different. So does that help? That has been very valuable, and I think will continue to be valuable to this airport, whether he's acting as an interim, whether he's continuing as a chief operating officer, or he becomes something even more than that. I think that was important to our organizational structure. So.
And I appreciate that. I mean, obviously, succession plans You know, as someone that runs an organization with over 500 employees, my team really makes it happen. They know this is my priority, and the team makes it happen. Obviously, having the confidence in you, having a confidence in the leadership team, hearing the things that we're going through. I haven't heard anything that Steve is not going to be prepared for. He's a known commodity. We certainly understand that, based on everything that I've heard, based on the conversations we've had over several lunches. I'm very, very comfortable in the interim status, and I don't feel the need to go out right now to go look for a national search.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask, Mr. Chairman, Steve a question. One of our biggest projects that's gonna be coming up in the future is the parallel runway. It's gonna be several $100 million. What kind of relationship do you have with FAA in terms of securing funding for that project?
Well, the team, Emily, Mark, has been working Ben diligently for years to get all the paperwork in order. From a funding standpoint, there's the triggers that Ben's alluded to in the past of you need the flights. And the first step, we're taking that right now, is adding the gates, getting the flights, getting our flights, coming here. The growth, the 10-year commitment will all lead to that. So from a funding standpoint, and those relationships, I think they're very strong. We just need to hit that number now.
May I just have one last?
Yes.
Are you making a decision on the interim? Because I want to make it very clear.
No, no,
That was
no.
my question about
I firmly
restating the motion.
I firmly
Yeah.
support
Yeah.
Ben's recommendation, and I would, as the ASMC, support and give 100% support to that. I think you've got the right person here to keep it going. And then if it's felt that we still need a search, does that happen in 6 months? Does that happen, I'm like you, we don't need to rush things because we've got a good interim. But I told Ben, make sure you stay out from under coconut trees. If the coconut tree hit you on the head, well, you've just told us today we've got Steve. Now, if the coconut hits Steve on the head, are we being prepared to have then another Steve here, to keep the interim going? So, and y'all just said, we've got a lot of big things coming up. And that's where I was coming from a search. I think being at FGCU, going through so many searches for the president, we learn, the trustees learn from every next level up, at every interview we had. And that doesn't mean that you at the end of the day, don't hire Steve, but we've all learned and gotten great ideas through the interview process. That's why I'm supporting this search.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could reinforce my motion. The motion was to accept the retirement of Ben Siegel, but also was to, as Steve is the intern now, but also do a national search and start that process as soon as possible, because time is really important. That's my motion.
Would the motion maker break it into two motions and accept the retirement and name Steve interim, and then do a separate motion on the search?
No.
Is there a second? That's the question.
Well, I think we're taking a pause. I would like to, I guess, make a comment to see, again, finding some middle ground here. What I love about this board, and I seen it happen with, when we hired our county manager, and made a change there, is we have discussion. And that's what's great about this board. And I don't think any of us feel that what's going on here at the airport is wrong. What we all feel is, can we make it better? And that's why we were elected, to try to figure out, make the right decisions. I truly believe having the knowledge of having other ideals is great, but I'm a big believer in promoting within. So that's why I say I'm 100% in the middle here, of which way to go. I do believe that we should. I would ask I think Commissioner Pendergrass to maybe split that. I do believe we should maybe break it up. I do believe that we should have a search, but I want to make sure that he feels comfortable in taking this role to continue to lead the airport. So I wouldn't mind voting on it separate. just simply because I think we need to really think about what's going on here at the airport right now, and I did express some concern. Having construction background, what I see here does concern me. And I must say that, I'll say it publicly, it concerns me. Because we're so far behind, there's some obvious issues that are gonna have to be addressed. So, I'm worried about the change being done right now because you know, you have such experience here. So, I'd like to continue to have a little discussion if we can, before we make a final decision. Yes?
If we want to be more transparent, talk more about it, but White made me make this motion, I'll be happy to. I'll change my motion. First motion would be to accept the retirement of Ben Siegel based upon the Vulcan item number 2. Then a second motion will be to do a search, a national search for the executive position.
Okay. So is the first motion, it's to accept Ben's resignation and name Steve as the interim?
Steve is interim. Yes.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
And just
So I
something-
have to have public comment on this? Yes.
But since we're having discussion, Jermaine, so I was where Commissioner Pendergrass was when we actually were with Dave Hardner. I'm the one that actually went out and said, let's do a national search. Y'all convinced me differently. So I've now had the opportunity to work with 2 people, okay, within our organization. The first one was Ben. He was interim when I got here, okay? We certainly promoted him. It worked out great. Against, you know, obviously, what my motion was exactly what Commissioner Pendergrass's. Let's go out and do a national search. We did not. Dave Hardin's been here 6 months. I think we're all very pleased with what that is. So the track record speaks for itself. And again, I feel very, very strongly that we stay at the interim. I think I agree with Robbie's point. We have the ability to pivot pretty quickly. If we feel we're having issues, listen, we're going to lose 30, 60, 90 days. I mean, we can pivot as quickly as we need to pivot. But quite frankly, everything that Steve has actually indicated clearly indicates he has the necessary experience. I certainly am not one for spending any more money than we need to. I think he has all the potential credentials, being able to be the COO. Listen, in corporate America, the 2 most common people that you seem to or a deputy that you actually name as your number 2 in succession planning. But the other aspect is it's generally CPAs and COOs that seem to rise up to the top through that. He's hold that title not only here, but also in Houston. You know, and I think those are the reasons why I feel as strongly as I do and why I felt a third time to bite at the apple, because you all certainly had a direction with Dave and you all were right and I was wrong. I never have a problem saying I was wrong. It's worked out well. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sandelli.
2 things. One is, the interim piece I'm in favor for, you know, and I think Steve's earned that. I think it came with a recommendation. You know, we've got the seasonal piece that's coming up. We got a lot of moving parts. We have some issues as he alluded. So I think that's a stability factor that I'm all in favor for. But I'm not in favor of having to go out and do a search starting tomorrow. I think there should be a period of time, whether it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, to make Steve comfortable, to make the transition go as smoothly as possible. If we find out that some of these things are insurmountable and we need to go out with a search, I think that's a separate time to do that. I wouldn't recommend doing it tomorrow.
Right, you're right.
I would just say, as to Commissioner Ruane and Sandelli, ditto.
Right. Thank you. Well, this time, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I also agree with their comments.
Okay. At this time, let's open it up for public comment. Come on up. Please state your name when you come up. Yep, you can state your name.
Derek Felder for the record. Sorry to see you go, but happy retirement. I would just like to say I would concur with majority of the board. I think that you have somebody here, I believe will fit that role. Let him do it interim for 6 months, see how he is. It'll probably work out great for you.
All right, thank you. Marshall.
First of all, let me say, I'm sure Mr. Siegel has done a beautiful job, and he has been a great contributor to the community. And I was also excited to hear about the qualifications of someone that you're considering for interim or beyond. I do think that it's important to look at the federal and the state nexus when we talk about the executive director position because, as Attorney West had stated, there's directly reporting to the board, but you also have to work with the FAA. You have to be aware of the state requirements, et cetera. And so I think that to broaden the scope is appropriate. The experience that Mr. Hennigan, I believe, mentioned in terms of his working at Houston, I think is very important to our community. Since Hurricane Harvey brought 60 inches of rain into that community, that is the kind of experience of handling the sorts of disasters that, God forbid, we ever experience for precipitation like that. And so I think approaching that and looking at the objective criteria that a national person could bring to our community is important to inform the local conditions and the things that are specific to our location of this airport in the wetlands, home to endangered species, in a burgeoning community, and balancing that interest. So I very much appreciate that his experience in a similar market that is vulnerable to some of the same risk that we face here is meaningful to me. I believe that when we have very important community positions like this, that it's important with transparency, that industry norms be considered and followed because of the responsibilities, not just to the people that live in our community, but to all of the people who are traveling here nationally and internationally, that we honor and we meet those standards. But I'm also a big believer in you understand best the local environment, and we know how dangerous those coconuts can be. And I very much respect the conversation I've heard today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Any other public comment? Okay, I'll close public comment. Any other discussion at this time for the board? No? Okay, we have a motion. Would you like to?
There's two motions. The first one is to accept the retirement and make Steve the acting intern based upon Ben's departure, April 1st.
Okay, so we have a motion, first motion. Do we have any objections to that motion? We have a second from Commissioner Hammond. Any objections to that motion? We have no objections. So motion number one will be unanimous. Congratulations. Watch the coconuts. When you're bald-headed, they scar. Have hair, they have padding. We understand. So congratulations.
Be a donor there.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah, congratulations.
I think he deserves a hand. I would also like to make one more comment to you as your voice was cracking. That's how I feel today, having to run this meeting. The last few days have been very tough to be a commissioner, especially a chairman.
What's the difference between this and 60,000 people in the stadium? I mean, what's the difference?
They're all booing me, which motivates me. But I get a little booed.
We'll hit you with a call.
I thought we got enough of those yesterday.
Starting to go back.
Yes.
So the second motion was to, after the departure of April 1st, Ben Siegel, the motion would be to start a national search for that position, which Steve and anybody else would be happy to enter.
And is there a timeline on it as of April 1st? Is that what you're saying, is a timeline or immediately?
Starting April 1st, based upon the departure of Ben Siegel, based upon his contract. Okay. That would be the starting date. So we have 3-4 months, and then it would start after that. And the search will take 9 months, so Steve will still be here that year, basically.
Okay. Do we have a second on that motion at this point? Then let's open for discussion, okay? On this one, because I think we need to keep them separated. Commissioner Moraine.
I'll take a crack at a motion. I'll make a motion that not only do we have the interim period of time, as indicated, it's always probationary. We always have the opportunity, we meet on a monthly basis to be able to pivot. In any situation, when you're interim, it's not a great title to have. We've all been in those situations. There's more pressure than you need to add on. So I would certainly not look to have an interim period for any less than 6 months to give the person an opportunity. I think there's a fair time to evaluate. I don't think that we're going to do anything. If for whatever reason, when you're on probation, if the probation is so bad or something we all could, we certainly have the ability to and open to amend the timeline, but I wouldn't be in favor of looking at any national search for at least 6 months. And I would only do that if the performance warranted it.
Okay,
That would be my motion.
okay,
I'll second that, motion.
okay. So, let's open to public comment. Oh, Commissioner Sendo.
No, that's
Go
quite
ahead.
all right.
You-
I agree with the comments, and I also look at the season is starting now, and it's gonna run for the next 5 or 6 months, which I think dovetails into the time where we give a good look at what's going on, and if we need to pull the trigger in 6 months, because I think season's very important to us in a lot of ways. So,
The only other comment I want to make is the 6 months I have is gives 3 months to work with Ben to continue to help that transition, but then at least 3 months to have him in the seat by himself to do that. And listen, we'll continue to talk to Ben, this conversation, and anytime you do a transition, you know what? When you develop a company, it's like your baby. Okay, at times, I can tell you as one, it's really hard to let go. But you want to always be involved regardless of whatever the situation is, and we'll continue to do that. That's why I felt very strongly about 6 months, because it's truly 3 months by yourself and 3 months with Ben. So I think that's a reasonable period of time.
Before I open up the public comment, I'll make a comment as well. 6 months, in 6 months, I had to do well enough to continue to get a contract for the next year, every year, basically, right? So I think that's a fair amount of time. I just want to say that I do think we may end up with a national search to get the knowledge of that. But I'm okay with 6 months of where we're at as well. So let's open up for public.
I just want to say, thank you, and I would support this. I'll give us opportunity to meet Steve. We had asked today what his title was, if you noticed, so we didn't really know Steve. So hopefully over the next 6 months, we'll get to know what he does, and hopefully what's happened in the last 3 years. I've received a lot of complaints about the things with the Port Authority, so maybe those will come out again. If not, then I'll be happy to support it.
Yeah, and I'll finish up with the last comment before I open up to public then, or at least unless other people would like to comment. I want to say the last comment. I think that's what's great about this board and having a board is you get to see that we all think it out. We all want to try to do the right thing. I love what we're doing today. It shows that we care. We want to make sure we're making the right decision, and we're pausing long enough to try to make the right decision and have a fair discussion up here. To me, it's impressive. I really respect this board for that today. Public comment.
Yeah, I got just one last thing.
Come on, Marcia.
I apologize for taking so much of your time. I hear the groans. But I'm just gonna throw this last thing in, and that is we have an opportunity here with a retiring executive director to perhaps, over the course of the 3 months and overlap to find out what the criteria are that Mr. Siegel, working in partnership with a trusted, with Mr. Hennigan, getting that correct, that they might recommend for the board, just so if this comes up, right, that you guys are a little bit ahead, and you have the opportunity to find out from someone who's spent 30 years in the organization, and that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Upton. Please state your name again, please.
Derek Felder for the record. I will say thank you for the clarification, because I was, initially when you said 6 months, I was more on the understanding of 6 months from April, so 9 months from now, to give him 6 months on his own to prove himself, not 6 months from now. So thank you for that clarification.
Could you restate your motion, please?
Sure. My motion is to have Steve Hannigan be interim for at least 6 months, recognizing that every person that's in a situation of a new situation is on probation. We have an opportunity to meet on a monthly basis, but I feel it's compelled upon us to have 6 months. The reason for my 6 months is it's 3 months to work underneath Ben to try to do that. Succession plans work when you actually do have the opportunity. You do have 90 days to work, but I also would like to at least give Steve the opportunity to 90 days, and I think in total, 180 days from today is a reasonable period of time.
Okay. We have a second from Commissioner Hammond, motion from, any further discussion? Yes, sir.
How does that work? Will Mr. Hennigan be interim, during the last 3 months of Ben's term?
That's
So
why I
will
asked
it
to
be two
clarify.
executive directors?
No.
No.
It's going to be an interim and then he'll still be the.
So since I made the motion, I'll clarify.
Okay.
If it helps a great deal. Generally, what we always have the privilege of when you have the opportunity to have two people do it, the title is still Ben's. Okay, it is certainly his. The interim certainly is there. It's an opportunity to have Ben accelerate the process, to continue to refine, to continue to work with the executive team to give Steve the best opportunity for the next 90 days to work with him. But the title is still yours. You're still our employee at the moment. It doesn't terminate. I'm not looking to have it terminate. And I really don't have the authority to actually have control over Steve just yet. That's not the way our employment agreements are, Mr. Attorney. Am I stating that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's the
Not
reason
yet.
for it.
I'm gonna put it in aviation terms. Ben is still in the left seat. You're in the right seat. And at the appropriate time,
Now I
you
understand.
get one more strike, you move over to the left seat,
You get to use
and we're
his
good.
office.
Clarified that. Thank you.
All right.
And then one last
Yes,
question,
yes.
Mr. Chairman, just for our county
Yes.
attorney or Port Authority attorney, as he sits today. Are there any compensation or paperwork things that need to be ironed out, or is that something that we could bring back at the next meeting? What's your advice on that?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr.
Given the revised motion that the interim status would take effect immediately, I would suggest you decide the question of compensation at today's meeting.
Yeah.
And I would refer you to when Mr. Siegel was made interim, the board afforded him a 10% pay increase over his base salary, his current salary, for that interim status. So by way of history, 10% is customary.
Mr. Chairman, may I have one more follow-up?
Commissioner.
Could Commissioner Ruane add that to his motion then?
We have no legal objections if it's.
Commissioner Ruane will gladly add that to his motion.
And then I'll add that to my second.
Thank you.
Okay.
May I ask the question?
Yes.
Okay, because this has happened in my industry. So if you go ahead and give him interim title today, or whenever you do, and you're giving him a 10% or whatever you decide, then if you decide that he's good, but gosh, I still just want to see what's out there and we can learn, does he still hold on to the 10 until the interim comes or until the permanent comes? If slim chance he doesn't become the permanent, I would still hope Steve is here, and I would hope that you wouldn't take that salary back, because that would be demoralizing to do that.
Earned
So,
compensation, you couldn't take it back.
Mr. Chairman?
okay.
Yes.
It's a question of timing. With regard to the 10% that Mr. Hennigan would have earned while he was interim, he would maintain that, obviously.
Okay.
That would be his. Going forward, once the title of interim was removed, the 10% would then go away as well. Now, if Mr. Hennigan is the successful candidate, of course, we would be negotiating an entirely new contractual agreement, similar to what we did with Mr. Siegel and your other 3 employees.
And who would negotiate that?
Typically, it's the chairman with the assistance of our office.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. We're good. We have a motion.
Yep.
We have a second. Do we have any further discussion? Any objections? No objections. Unanimous decision, 5-0. Congratulations on the increase in pay and the. Commissioner items. Moving to commissioner items. Commissioner Pendergrass, do you have any commissioner items at this time?
No items, but I will be leaving after the meeting because I had a prior commitment at 11 o'clock. I'm already late to.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't sure how long this meeting was going to last before the workshop. So I will get that from Gary and his staff later in the presentation. So thank you.
Thank you for hanging with us.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sandelli, any items? No items. Commissioner Ruane?
No.
No items. Commissioner Hammond?
No items.
And I have none. Committee appointments. Are there any committee appointments?
No.
I gotta call it then, individually. Hold on. Okay, none? Okay. At this time, I would like to introduce the Airport Special Management Committee Chair for any comments.
I'll make it brief. We've run late. I just applaud the board's actions today, and I love how you guys work transparently and together. It's really, in government, this is very refreshing.
Reflection on this whole team. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Executive Director items. We will move to Director items. Mr. Siegel, do we have any items?
In the interest of time, I'm just gonna defer to the next meeting, so.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Ben, I guess, that was here? Port attorney items. Do we have any port attorney?
We can take the hint, no, sir.
Smart man.
See what you don't think about that, or what happens?
I know. Okay. So at this time, I see no further work in front of us. We have a.
Public comment on other matters.
Okay, I'm sorry, we do have a public comment card on other matters.
Wait for your time.
Oh, shoot.
Are you gonna waive your time, Ms. Ellis? Thank you very much, because as you can see, we have other meetings today, obviously. Okay, so at this time, I see no other public business in front of us, so we are adjourned. Wow, I'm learning. I'm learning.
Workshop.
Okay.
Are you recoming?
We have the workshop.
Oh, we have a workshop. I apologize today. That's why we're running late.
5-minute break for the workshop.
5-minute break?
5-minute break.
I'm sorry, we have a workshop.
Mr. Chairman, can we have a comfort break?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank
We
you.
can have a 10-minute.
Jeez.
Okay. Thank you.
Great job today, guys.
Great job. Yes, sir. You back on.
Oh, Greg?
All right, I'd like to
Haven't missed it.
reconvene the
Until the
Port of
last 10 days.
Board at this time. So, let me get started. All right. Hold on. Workshop. Where'd it go? What happened?
A little mood lighting atmosphere.
Where did that go?
Mr.
Okay. All right, I'd like to reconvene the workshop, at this point. Mr. Siegel, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So today's workshop, we're going to talk about Skyplex development, something that we've all been working on for quite some time. The firm of Cushman Wakefield, Commercial Property of Southwest Florida, and the team and their team with MXD and Stantec have been doing a great job for us. Today's presentation is going to show you what we've done as part of phase 2 of their scope, which is a conceptual development plan and financial analysis. And very excited to show you all the work that they've done. I've seen this presentation. Don, pronounce your name for me again. I can never say it right.
Scrotenbor.
Scrotenbor is going to do a presentation for us, and with that, I'll just turn it over to Don. And really, today at the end of the workshop, we're really looking for some consensus and direction from the board to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. So with that, I'll turn it over to Don. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Ben. Appreciate it. And thanks for dimming the light. I look much better in the darker. Before I get into the presentation, just personally and also on behalf of the Skyplex development team, we are saddened by your resignation, Ben, to hear of it. We thank you for your work in this community and all that you've done, and we wish you the best and your family the very best. Congratulations to you, Steve, on your intro position. Look forward to getting to know you and work with you, and anything we can do on behalf of the Skyplex team, we're here to help you in your position. Thank you. I'm Don Scrotenbor. I'm serving as the Senior Project Manager for the Skyplex development, and we're very pleased to be here today, and thank you for the opportunity. These findings are in an accumulation of around 7 months of study and coordination among our team and among a number of the Port Authority staff as well. And just a reminder, and I think you know this, today's presentation is just a very high-level summary of all of the findings and the analysis that have been done. And all of that can be, the complete findings and analysis can be found in the 100-page report that was sent to you last week. And of course, even following this meeting, if you have questions, we're happy to meet with you individually or collectively, whatever's needed to respond to those. Mr. Chairman, I might ask that given the amount of information and the flow of information, it would be best if I ask respectfully for the board and the committee to hold their questions until the end of the presentation.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. So up on the board is our collective team that we have put together for phase 1 and phase 2 of the Skyplex development. Should we move into phase 3, which we'll talk about very briefly, this list will expand considerably in terms of consultants. But with us today, we have a few of the members. We have Gary Tasman, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Commercial Property Southwest Florida. We also have with us Josh Philpott, who is a Senior Aviation Planner with Stantec and is also in the local office here with Stantec. And we also have pleased with us today is Chris LaTurner, and who is the President and CEO, as well as Martin Ansey, who's the Senior Vice President of MXD Development and Strategist with us from Vancouver. Just briefly, I probably need to say, I just want to really pay credence to this team that's been assembled. I think some of you or most of you are familiar with my background in working on some very landmark projects in Southwest Florida with some very prolific developers over the years. And I can say that this is probably likely the most dedicated, focused team. Well, most members are focused team that I've had the privilege of working with. And in addition, and even more important than that, this analysis that we're going to be presenting to you that we've been through is likely the most comprehensive evaluation of a development project that I've been involved in. So hopefully that will prove true from this presentation and what we're about to show you. Before I get really into the, oh, I'm sorry, I missed my slide. Just to kind of understand a little bit where we are in the study process, phase one is in essence completed. We presented our findings to you back in May on phase one, and since that time, we've been working on phase two, which we're again presenting to you today, which will consist of land use allocation, development program, conceptual site plan, and probably the most important is the financial analysis and feasibility study. As we move forward, we are hopeful to get into the phase three, which is the nuts and bolts of the entitlements and permitting stage, and we will likely be back to you in May with our proposal to do that based on today's findings, and then we move into four, which is the marketing and transaction phase of this. So in terms of the framework, I think it's a little bit helpful to step back a little bit. I'm just going to brief you very quickly on some of the highlights of phase one that were really used as the framework then to move and give us the momentum into the phase two findings. The framework that I just spoke of in phase one was based on quite a few things. One is the land use policy and zoning summary, environmental impact analysis, existing condition analysis, a development constraints map, and a market analysis. And again, we reported on that back in May to you. In addition to all of those technicalities and building that framework, we also built some guiding principles over the time that were implemented into this, and that is, concentrate intensities, minimize environmental impact, ways of accelerating demand even beyond what our market study shows, a diversification of income stream to the Port Authority, the creation of regional jobs, and the maximization of the airside, landside interface, which is also known as the bulkhead. Also, as part of our phase one and also continuing well into our phase two, we conducted a number of stakeholder interviews, and these are with key and local regional businesses and employers that we've had, and also with some of the existing tenants in Skyplex today. Through that, we did interview to date 23 stakeholders. This is just a brief sampling of some of those that we have met with. It's not all 23. All 23 are in your report with a summary as well of each one of those. They include the economic development agencies from Charlotte, Henry, Lee, and Collier counties, NeoGeonomics, Tampa International Airport, the Boston Red Sox organization, just to name a few. But through these interviews, and as important as they were, there were some common themes that came from these interviews. And just to name a few of them is shovel ready. And we've heard that theme consistently since we've been involved in this project, and maybe is the primary reason why we're here, is to try to bring to shovel ready. But in terms of shovel ready, it's at the speed to market, and as well as being developer friendly and having things in a position so it takes the risk away from those end users and developers that are being identified. A multi-use complex, such as conferences, events, seminars, meeting facilities. It was a very consistent theme among everybody, particularly in this area of the county, and that synergy with the airport as well. Innovation technology spaces such as biotech, wet labs, technology centers, incubator spaces, those type of things, and just a general sense of place for education, sports and entertainment, and technology. Again, were these common themes that we learned and have incorporated as we moved into phase two. Part of phase one was a market analysis. And again, we went into more in depth on this back in May with you. But you may recall this map that we presented. It's what we titled the Existing and Emerging Site Context Map. It really demonstrated to us and hopefully to you as well of several of the synergistic and compatible uses in this area that we can build off from. It also identified as I-75 as really being the economic corridor in this area, and it also demonstrated that the Southwest Florida Regional Airport, and particularly Skyplex, is the hole in the donut around all of this development that has taken place and expected to continue to take place over the years. Market analysis, and again, this is a bit of a high-level summary, but a very important one. We, through our market analysis, it was able to quantify the demand that could be specifically put onto Skyplex, should there be room. We estimated that, or not we, but the market analysis showed us that between 12 and 20 million square feet of vertical development could be targeted and placed on and around Skyplex. When you break down that 12 to 20 million square feet, that really translates somewhere between 645 and 1,100 net developable acres to put that kind of density and intensity on the property. Through our exercise, and I'll get into this a little bit more as I move forward through the presentation, but through our exercise, we have identified and come up with 571 acres of net developable land. Obviously, the demand is going to far exceed the land supply that is available at Skyplex. And that is the reason why back in November we were before you with our proposal to study the additional lands on the south end of the airport, the additional 900 acres. Because of this, we feel that some of these uses could be put onto that area, onto the south end of the airport, and create a really high-level synergy development plan overall for the airport. So we thank you very much for your support of that and putting that within our contract. That study for the southern end is underway, and we anticipate being back to you around the May timeframe probably with our phase one findings on that report as well. One might ask though, however, I talk about 571 acres. How can you get that if Skyplex is 1,800 acres? How do you get to 571? I'll get into that as we move through a little bit more, but you have to, once you consider and take out the high quality wetlands in being environmental stewards and respectful of that end of it, the aeronautical constraints that exist throughout Skyplex. You also take out all of the existing infrastructure, such as the roads and the surface water management that exists today, and also account and take out for any future roads and additional water management is how we get to the 571. So it's a significant difference, but that's how we get to the 571 of net developable acres. And again, as I proceed, we'll get into that just a little bit more. So the conceptual development, this is really where I'm kind of turning now from summary of phase one and into our findings of phase two. And again, we built this from the framework and the principles that I briefly described to you just a few minutes ago. The plan is before you. A little difficult to see at this scale and given the size of the screen, but this plan is detailed. yet it's flexible in its design. It is data-driven. We could not stress that enough. That was our main impetus of demonstrating of why this needed to happen, was to have a data-driven plan, and that's from the market analysis that I spoke of. It is physically possible, and I'll speak to that. And as you'll also learn later in the presentation, and most importantly, it is financially feasible. We, where am I at? Sorry. Did I go too far? Oh yeah, I think I went too fast there. Sorry. So this development plan was to optimize the development area while minimizing the environmental impacts and taking advantage of the existing infrastructure to the greatest extent possible. The plan leverages exposure on Daniels, on Doherty Parkway, as well as Chamberlain and Skyplex Boulevards, which are all existing infrastructures, and also takes advantage of the airside, landside interface that is very rare to most development situations on airports, and something that is a great attribute to what this could become in the future. It also incorporates, not only acknowledges the wetlands, but it also incorporates the wetlands and the large lake systems within there as an amenity, for a view amenity for the surrounding businesses there that could also increase land value as well. And I spoke of flexibility, and this plan, while it's very specific looking in this nature, it has a lot of flexibility to it. So we can combine these parcels depending on what the use is and what the demand is, or we can also chop them up even further, because all of them will have eventually roads and utilities brought to them, so they can be chopped up or combined to provide that flexibility for businesses today and in the future as well. But we'll begin to kind of look at this a little bit more in depth and break it down here in the next couple slides. The next thing we did with our conceptual development plan was kind of put it into phases or sub areas, if you will. And so we've come up with Skyplex West, Skyplex Central, and Skyplex East on these. These sub-areas were based on proposed water management basins and also market demand generators that we've looked at. Each of these phases have their own identified focus and demand generators, while being compatible and synergistic to the entire development. And again, we're going to start seeing that in a little bit more detail on these slides. So Skyplex Central, we'll start there, is really considered the heart of Skyplex development. It harnesses the immediate demand opportunities to develop hotels in conjunction with the lifestyle retail centers, multi-purpose meeting venues, while providing adjacency and amenity to the Flex Tech Park. And if I get my pointer here, so that's kind of this area right here. So this area has been identified as a retail lifestyle center, hotels that all have these vistas of this existing lake, what we call Skyplex Lake, and also where we plan on expanding that in the future. And then this is our Flex Tech space that could be a great synergy along with this multi-conference center and hotel listed here as well. Obviously, you can see we also have a tremendous opportunity for this airside interface with the landslide here as we move forward. So just again, trying to move through this a little bit quicker, Skyplex Central is around 182 of net developable acres, and we have programmed approximately 3.2 million square feet of building area on this portion. So this is the same. This is still Skyplex Central. What this exhibit demonstrates is that we have put in here building typologies into each of the development parcels based on the use that we believe could go there. And the other thing we did was we also test fitted it for parking to support that particular use and square footage on that particular parcel. The reason to do that is to demonstrate that this is a physically possible development plan. This is not a cartoon that has no realistic meaning of ever being developed. This is a realistic, physically possible plan. Will it look like this at the end? Probably not, but at least we know what the parameters are for each of the development parcels as we work through. Some of the target sectors you can see there, I don't need to go through them, but that we've kind of identified in this area that will create tremendous synergy as well, not only within this particular sub area, but through the project itself. Skyplex East. So Skyplex East to us is kind of considered the lifeblood of the project. It is approximately 197 acres in net developable acres, and we have programmed about 3 million square feet on this one. Skyplex East really takes advantage of some of the existing businesses that are already there. Gartner, Alta, and Skyplex Walk, or Skywalk, that you're already familiar with. So it builds off from that, and it also builds off from Doherty Parkway and the infrastructure and utilities that lie within that. The one thing we are proposing to do is run another road here back off from Daniels to provide access to all of this great opportunity for commercial flex space up here along Daniels and the frontage, taking advantage of that. And it also provides and opens up for this other flex tech space in here. The East, Skyplex East, also offers the largest contiguous land area for logistics, warehousing, things of that nature. We've, as you'll learn in a little bit, we've identified an area for a cold storage, which is one of the catalyst projects that we think could help further the demand for Skyplex in the future. Again, very similar to the last one, this is the building typology that we have come up with to support the uses that the target sectors that you see on the left-hand side of the screen, and again has been test fitted for parking. Skyplex West, we kind of refer to this as the brains of Skyplex, and all of this anatomy nomenclature is the creativity of Gary Tasman. And so we appreciate his efforts in coming up with this nomenclature of brains and lifeblood and heart. So anyway, the Skyplex West is, again, about 191, 192 acres of net developable land. We've programmed in 1.8 million square feet of building, vertical building, if you will, or development. And so Skyplex West really takes advantage of Chamberlain Parkway. Now, I will say we are proposing to realign Chamberlain Parkway. And the purpose of that really is to create some larger parcels on the east side of Chamberlain that could take advantage of this watershed and water view and increasing property values. We also see this as an office opportunity, and that office opportunity certainly lends itself to human performance or life sciences, very similar to the KMPG Lake House in Lake Nona that we talked about in phase 1 with you a little bit. This sub-area is also closest to the I-75 Daniels interchange, so it really opens up the opportunity here to the north for gas stations, convenience stores, 3-star level hotels within this area as well. We are also proposing that air cargo lane be reconfigured, and the purpose of reconfiguring that is to open up even more airside opportunities, because we think that this is just a massive opportunity for Skyplex and the Port Authority in opening up as much airside opportunities as possible. So that reconfiguration does that. Skyplex West also has a little parcel that fronts tree line over here. And of course, as we all drive tree line, we see a tremendous amount of industrial and logistics being built. We think that there's an opportunity for a continuation of that in this area. We have also proposed, if we can get this permitted, a secondary road that comes off from airport cargo out to tree line. And primarily what this purpose would be is to try to take all of the heavy traffic from logistics and the warehousing straight out to tree line without having to go through the public interface that's being envisioned for the rest of Skyplex. Doesn't mean that they can't go out Farm Fuel Road up to Daniels if they need to, but we also think that this is important to try to get this out to tree line, again, given support, if we can get support for doing that. Similar to the other ones I've already talked about, this is looking at the building typologies based on the uses and the square footages that we've put on here, and has also been tested for parking. So as we kind of look at this, what we have is the 571 acres of net developable land that we spoke of. The gross, if you put the infrastructure, both the existing and the future infrastructure back into it, were around 720 acres of gross developable acres. Because the largest portions of Skyplex here to the west and then here to the east are very highly sensitive wetland system, high quality, not all of them, but majority of them. And so we're at this time staying out of those under this proposed development in this location. But again, I cannot emphasize enough the flexibility that's been designed into this. It is a data-driven, realistic plan. It's been test fitted for building typologies, for building parking, so it's physically possible to do this. And so we couldn't be more excited about this opportunity and in presenting this plan, because we think it's as realistic of a plan that Skyplex and the Port Authority has had. Tremendous amount of time has been spent on investments, and I will use the word investment versus cost, because we do look at any amount of money that the Port Authority might invest in this in the future as a true investment and not necessarily a cost. So therefore we have cost estimates. So I don't expect any of you to be able to read this, but on the right-hand side, but it gives you a breadth of detail that we put into this, and there's a lot behind this one. But this is a spreadsheet that breaks down the development cost or the investment for each individual parcel. So every parcel that we walked through or saw in east, west, and central are listed here with their uses and the acreages for each one of those parcels. And then we went out to various trades, local trades, and got real numbers on construction based on our plan. Now, these weren't hard bid numbers, of course, but they were given our plan. They did takeoffs, and they came back to us with cost. And I think we did that with approximately 5 or 6 local general contractors with their assistance in doing it. So we feel good at today with these cost numbers. And of course, I'm not expecting you again to understand all of this, but we have site development costs, which are the paving, drainage, and utilities. We also have the cut and fill. There's some depressional areas in here, so there's a lot of fill, but we believe that we've come up with a plan where the fill is balanced. And so anything that we expand it as part of our existing or future surface water management, there's a sufficient amount of fill there to fill the site without having to go out and pay $32, $35 a cubic yard, which is the going rate today for fill. We also built in soft cost in here, and then all of the mitigation costs to mitigate all of this. What is that total? Can't quite see it down here, but the next slide will give us a little bit better and simpler picture of what I just spoke about. The total is $131 million of cost to bring the 500 and let's call it 70 acres or 720 acres gross to pad ready. I'll speak about pad ready more in the future, but what that really means is that it's filled to grade, it has utilities and roads to it, and it's been fully environmentally mitigated. So it is shovel ready, it's developer friendly, and ready for simplicity of taking to market. So the breakdown of the investment cost to get to the $130 million. Earthwork, let me go to my notes because I thought it was on here, I'm sorry. Earthwork was around $63.8 million. Enabling infrastructure, utilities, roads, water, it's approximately $33.4 million. We have mitigation cost of just under $20 million between these two. Here you got wetlands and panther. And then we have soft costs. So this is how we come up with the total investment cost. Now, we're not expecting all of that to be spent at one time. That's why we have phasing. You'll also see in our financial analysis coming up, we actually anticipate that $131 million being spent over 20 years to get the build out on this project. Okay. You've heard me refer to enabling projects. That's synonymous with the word infrastructure. So this exhibit, oops, pardon me, jumping ahead to the good stuff. So this exhibit just kind of quickly demonstrates where we are adding new roads. They're kind of identified in green. Chamberlain is green because we plan on reconfiguring it. But it also identifies the additional surface water management areas of expanding Skyplex Lake, as well as developing a new water management system internal to Central that again will provide a wonderful view amenity for all of the restaurants and hotels and flex office space that we envisioned in this area here. I think it's also important to note that there are some existing infrastructure that is currently located, such as the air traffic control tower, the car rental service, and the cargo area here. These are all slated to be through the master plan that's in place, all slated to be decommissioned and relocated. I just point out that if for some reason that didn't happen, or if they were delayed for an extended period of time, it would have a significant impact on this development plan, particularly the car rental area in here. But again, it's fully anticipated that these will be done under the master plan over a period of time. So the financial analysis, this is where the fun stuff really begins. So we put together an investment revenue analysis for it, and this is based on the conceptual development plan that I just walked you through. The goal here was to quantify the financial feasibility and return on investment for the Port Authority on bringing the development area to pad ready. And again, this financial analysis was built out over a 40-year period. We think build out is over 20, but the revenue stream continues well beyond the build out, and we have programmed it at least out to 40 years. It could have gone further in this situation, but we stopped it at 40. So what you have here are 5-year increments. So assuming development could start in 2026 after a lengthy entitlement and permitting process, you have 5-year increments that make up the 40 years out to 2066 on this. So the first line is our site preparation cost. That is the investment cost that I just referred to. And you'll see that it's actually higher than the $131 million. That's because we've built in an inflationary factor over the first 20 years. We think that the infrastructure will take 20 years to build out, as I said. So we've built an inflationary factor onto that 1.3 million for a total of 147. So you can see these last numbers are all the same. That's because by 2041, we anticipate all of the development costs to be absorbed by this time. The second line is the land lease revenues. And so they are projected, again, out over the 40 years. I'll show you what that means in terms of 20 years, so it kind of matches up on the next slide with the build out, but we took it out over 40 years, and we're projecting $1.6 billion in land lease revenues. So we derived the land lease revenues from a cap rate of the land value. So what does that kind of mean? Through our market studies and other analysis we did, we've determined that, for example, industrial, the going cap rate in today's market is right around 7%. We've also learned that pad-ready industrial property today is going for around $700,000 an acre in this area. So if you take the 7% cap rate times with the value of the land, you come up with a land lease of $49,000 per acre per year. So that's kind of how we formulated to get the land leases. And that's a very common methodology in real estate and working through and trying to come up with a land lease revenue. And we applied that to each one of the different various uses that we have, whether hospitality, retail, industrial. We applied that, and that's how we came up with the projected land lease revenues, again, of $1.6 billion over the 40 years. The cumulative cash flow is just that, it's cumulative. So what you have is the $1.6 billion, and you take out the 147, and you come up with $1.4 billion of projected cash flow. That translates into an internal rate of return of 27.1%. We also used a discount model and applied a 10% discount, which gave us a net present value today of $165 million. What is, I think most of you know, but net present value means that means in today's dollar, you've gotten your $147 million back from your investment, and this is the amount of revenue up and above that in today's dollars. So these are very much the same figures that I just shared with you in terms of the IRR and the NPV. Here's a little bit on the 20 years. So on the land lease revenue, over the first 20 years is $540 million of projection. And then over the 40-year period is the 1.6 that I spoke about earlier. This is important to us because we wanted to provide, we wanted to have a sensitivity analysis because why we are, our analysis is coming up what we truly believe based on our professional real estate findings and analysis of $165 million of net present value. We wanted to test it to see what would happen if things went bad or things went good. And that's what this sensitivity analysis kind of does. So for example, if land lease revenues went up 15% higher than what we were projected, and our site development cost or our investment cost went down 15%, you're looking at a net present value of $218 million. Conversely, if things were to go south and the land lease revenues came in at 15% less than what we have projected, and our site development cost or investment cost went up 15% more, you're still looking at a net present value of $111 million. So this is exactly what we use in the private sector development in analyzing a development of a go, no-go. And this would really demonstrate to us that this is a go project based on this financial outcome and having the sensitivity analysis done based on what could happen. This chart is really just concentrated on the first 20 years. So what we have here is in the green, we have 20 years of revenue based on our projections. and then you have the 20 years of investment cost, and you can see that kind of plateaus, out pretty heavy at the beginning, about $31 million in phase one, and then exponentially going up. But the point of this is to kind of decide and look at where the break-even point is, and it's year 8 under this. So we think that that too also demonstrates a very healthy financial situation for the future of Skyplex. Now, we built this model just on the most basic straight line land lease, lowest risk opportunity for the Port Authority. Risk of just putting, the development cost in, but then just doing straight land leases. We believe that there's an opportunity. Doesn't have to be talked about today, doesn't have to be decided. There are opportunities in the future that we feel that would be presented to the Port Authority that could exponentially improve these returns, and that's through participations and joint ventures of the various developments, depending on the risk analysis that the Port Authority wants to get into. But there is that opportunity. The other thing that our financial analysis didn't do was account for any catalyst projects. These catalyst projects are individual projects that are identified, brought in, that help accelerate the demand based on what we already have demonstrated is possible on Skyplex as well. So there are opportunities to improve this beyond what we're even bringing forward today. So catalyst projects, and I'll try to speed through this pretty quickly. Again, these are the individual projects that could be brought into the development that accelerate the demand because of their various criteria. An example of this, for example, would be Publix. That's the most obvious catalyst project. When Publix comes in or announces, everything around it explodes, right? It's just a catalyst. I-75 is another example of a unique catalyst project. What we did as a team is come up with a model to try to rank the catalyst projects and what would serve as the greatest benefit to Skyplex. We identified, I think, around 11 or 12 different catalyst projects that had the potential, and we broke that down into 4 categories of logistics, mobility, innovation, and hospitality. We also broke it down further by breaking it into various criteria. So we have real estate performance. This is like based on new to market revenue potential and capital requirements. Economic development, evaluation of economic diversity, employment generators are all built into this analysis. And then airport operations criteria. So airport cargo expansion, air traffic, and route expansions were all taken into consideration in this analysis for all of these various potential catalyst projects. Some of the highest rankings, a little difficult to see, some of the highest rankings were logistics, innovations, such as temperature controlled, airside, fast cycle logistics, tech incubator spaces, and aerospace manufacturing were all some of the highest ranking catalyst projects. We then also took the opportunity to kind of cite where some of these catalyst projects could be located within our conceptual development plan. And I won't run through all of these for the speed of time, but again, here are the 11 or 12 that we identified. We've kind of placed a good number of those throughout the property. Obviously, you can see from this, if you can kind of match that up with this, even though it's a different direction, we've placed catalyst projects within each of the sub areas that provide, the catalyst or the synergy within the sub area, but overall the entire development as well. We have vertical ports located in this area. We have over here, we have climate conditioned warehousing. We have our multi-meeting venue with hotel in this area, just to give you a little sight. So this gives us the opportunity now to really kind of turn and be more proactive rather than reactive as to where things get placed on Skyplex as we move forward in matching up with our master development plan. In terms of some just very high level potential catalyst projects that we identified, temperature controlled, you heard me say that a few other times. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this for the sake of time, but this could be obviously a significant catalyst in terms of the interface between the air side and land side, and bringing that forward. Air side fast light cycle logistics as well. This is again taking advantage of that air side land side that I keep speaking of. It benefits the supply chain, logistics, and the wider economic region, and this is also a very good employment generator as well. Here's the multi-purpose event center. Needless to say, this could be a significant catalyst project, even though it didn't rank as high on our matrix because it doesn't necessarily have benefit to the air side in terms of increased cargo or logistics or routes. But we do think that this is a significant one to consider as a catalyst project. But this would be used for events, meetings, corporate uses. We heard from a number of through our stakeholders that some of these sizable, like Neogenomics, they can't even have all of their sales staff in without at their offices. They have to go elsewhere and rent. And speaking, they would find this location would be preferred for everybody flying in, be able to meet, and then get back out, just as an example. This illustration, pardon me, wrong button. This illustration here is from a mixed-use retail center in Plano, Texas. And the anchor to this is a multi-purpose event center. And so we think that this is something that could be done very similarly in fashion at Skyplex as we work through. So that's just an example. And then the last one is the aerospace advanced manufacturing. Again, you can sell a lot around the air side and land side energies. I can't say enough about how important that is and how rare it is for with other airport development. And then our last exercise that we did in phase 2 was looking at the economic impacts of Skyplex on a regional basis. And when I say regional, it's a 3-county. We looked at Collier, Lee, and Charlotte. That does not mean that there would not be potentially other positive impacts for the other surrounding communities, but the models that were used are dealing with specifically just the 3-county area. So in determining this, we had to come up with what the direct impacts were. These are direct impacts as a creation of Skyplex development in terms of construction, employment, other things of that. The indirect impacts in terms of goods and services from business to business, supply chain efficiencies, those kind of things, and then induced impacts as well. And this is the increased household income or consumption that is then spent throughout the local economy as well. So what does this look like? And they're big numbers, and they're pretty impressive for what Skyplex could do for our region. So again, looking at the construction, and we broke this down into 2 components: construction and operational. Construction are those one-time expenditures. Operational are those that are ongoing and reoccurring throughout the economy as part of this development. In terms of the construction, we broke it down, as I said, into direct and indirect and also induced impacts here. We're looking at $1.6 billion output into the local economy. Again, this is one time based on just the construction. Total economic output is $4.2 billion when you add in all of the other impacts, and construction jobs are in total right around 20,000 employment years. I say 20,000 employment. So what does that mean? That's another way of looking at it. It's 2,000 construction jobs over 10-year period. That's how you get to 20,000 years in analyzing that. Then turning to the operational phase, again, very healthy numbers. Total earnings of $957 million, economic output of $2.9 billion. Total employment is a little over, projected to be a little over 21,000 jobs. Now, these are not years, these are actual jobs. 13,000 of those or thereabout would be direct jobs at Skyplex, and about another 8,000 jobs throughout the region as created by Skyplex. We also took the opportunity to look at some of the tax revenue that could be generated from Skyplex. And again, these are reoccurring type benefits and impacts to the economy. Property tax of $25 million based off all of the non-aeronautical development within Skyplex. Doesn't account for the aeronautical development. Sales tax revenue of $10 million, retail sales of $2 million, tourist developments of $1.3 million, so about $39 million of tax revenue that's reoccurring every year in the economy as a result of Skyplex. So obviously, as we got into this, we realized that these numbers were very favorable, but we weren't satisfied with that. We wanted to get an independent third-party analysis of our findings to either prove us wrong or prove us right. And I'm pleased that through the cooperation of John Talmadge and Dana Burnett at the Economic Development Office, they had agreed on our request to run a separate model because the model we used was different than the model that the Economic Development Office uses. So we thought it would be a good test fit. So we provide all of our data points to them. They ran it through their model, and we are extremely pleased to say that in almost all occurrences it matched, and in some cases were slightly more robust than our findings within a margin of error. So we've back-checked it. We feel good about those findings and what John and his team and Dana have been able to demonstrate. Through that exercise and working with the Economic Development Office, John has mentioned a couple times that there's probably not a more important single project in Lee County that the county could invest in than Skyplex, and particularly in generating these kind of revenues. In addition, our partners at MXD, who do similar work at airports throughout the world, have expressed as well that this could be one of, if not the best financial performance projections for an airport development in all of the situations that they've worked at throughout the world. So extremely positive. So kind of why? What creates that, right? Why is this an anomaly? Well, you got several things. You heard me talk about, you got the airside, landside interface. Extremely important, and is really in itself a catalyst to this project that a lot of other developments, airport developments, don't have. You've got the rapid growth in Southwest Florida. All indications it's continuing. I think we can build off from that. We have a proven market demand, and the location. We saw the hole in the donut, right? Developments all around us. It's an opportunity to take advantage of it. So when you put all of that in, it helps get us to what we are projecting, where to go with this in the future. So what are the next steps in getting there? Again, this is kind of what the first slide in terms of where we are. The next step would be supporting phase 3, which is really the design and permitting of the conceptual development plan. These would be permits that would allow it to go forward to pad-ready sites, not the actual construction, but just the permitting of it. Phase 3 would also include funding strategies. We don't expect the Port Authority to have $131 million in its pocket, And we want to try to help, through our experience, identify those public-private partnerships and those funding opportunities that could help support it, particularly for the first $31 million for the phase one. Because once you do the phase one and make that investment, it's self-perpetuating. And you don't have to find the rest of the $131 million because you'll have funds coming in to help offset that as well. And then we get into property offers and development, and of course that leads us to marketing and transactions. We anticipate being probably back to you April, May with our proposal in support of phase 3 and 4. So please look forward to that, and again, would appreciate your strategy. So in terms of permitting and entitlements, just kind of looking at that individually, it's about approximately a 2-year process to get through that. But during this time, we're also doing public relations, we're doing some marketing, and we're exposing it, trying not to expose it, trying not to make it peak too early in that process, but that's all part of it. But this includes going through the zoning, development orders for the master development plan, taking it through all of the FAA approvals that are going to be needed through the 163 and 1 NEPA review, and then working through the environmental with the DEP and the South Florida Water Management, and likely U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as well, and then looking at where all of the mitigation comes from. That's going to be an issue of is there enough credits in the system currently to supplement this. So we'll be looking at all of this as we go through phase 3, which we're hopeful to get to. With that, I thank you for your patience in the time that I've taken. Hopefully you have found it beneficial. We're extremely happy, pleased with the results. I think Ben and his team were as well when we presented to this a couple of weeks ago, and I'll open it up for questions and answers.
Okay. This time, does the board have any questions for? Yes, sir.
2 things. Could we get a copy of this?
Yes.
And second, after you build the roads and the infrastructure, what's the cost to maintain that to the authority?
Yeah, we'll have to analyze that. We have not got into that operational detail, but that certainly will be part of this as well.
Thank you.
In doing that. You really think you can permit this in 2 years? I think based on our relationships, I think based on our experience, I think we have a very good shot at it, yes. The
DEP takes 2 years to do a house permit.
I'm involved in 3 projects with the DEP right now, so I can attest to what you're saying. Yes, but we will work steadfast and have a collective team to try to move it through. But yes, that's our projection at this time.
May I?
Yeah.
I think on that was a 104-page deliverable
Yeah.
that was done. You used a cap rate of 7%.
On the industrial.
On the, yeah.
Not across the board on all the uses, but on the industrial we did.
Right. Only on the industrial?
That's correct.
Okay. I mean, of course, that's subject to adjustments in the market.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
How is that going to affect, I mean.
Well, part of that is.
Point difference in the cap rate makes a significant difference in the net present value.
Very intuitive. Thank you, Scott, on that. But that gets us back to our sensitivity analysis, right? And that's why we ran it, because while we're projecting what we believe is the best case scenario today, or most likely scenario, things change, particularly over 20 years, 40 years. And so we built this sensitivity analysis to kind of hopefully address some of that in terms of whether the land lease revenues go down or the costs go up, what that could still mean in terms of a net present value. That's 15, based on worst case scenario, 15% either way. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Question Ben, if I may, you're looking for guidance from the board at this point, whether to continue to move forward with the phase 3 operations, right?
Yes, Mr. Chair. What we are looking for is feedback on the progress that we've made to date, and looking for consensus to move forward into phase 3, which will further the analysis. As you can see, it's a very robust analysis has taken place. We've gotten through the first 2 phases. with board's consensus in terms of the direction we're going. And as you can see, it's very necessary to go through these steps to kind of move something like this forward. And would, look for a consensus to continue on moving forward with the scope and the contract that we have with Commercial Property of Southwest Florida. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I know we've got a couple really good real estate and financial minds here, so I won't talk long. I just wanted to share that I was impressed with the presentation. I appreciated the amount of detail that was included in it. Environmentally, I like the idea of preserving the high-quality wetlands. I think that was fantastic. I thank you for showing us the break even on our investment at that year 8. In my experience working in the telecommunications business, when we looked at, major investments in our network, we looked how quickly could we get paid back for that investment, and then when would we be turning profit after that. And that's about the same break-even point that we were looking for as well. So I think all of that makes a lot of sense. I think, I loved seeing the projection of 21,000 jobs. I think about when we have 1 million people living here, where are they going to work? And I think that's this will be a true employment center and a real economic driver for our area. So, and then finally, just wanted to say, I thought it was fantastic that you took the effort to go ahead and then verify the projections that you came up with our economic development office, because that's what I was thinking the entire time. And so I'm glad we held our questions to the end, because I was thinking, I wonder what a third party would think about this. And then you got right to it. So that's my thoughts. I'm okay with moving to phase 3 as it's been outlined, but would definitely love to hear from my colleagues.
I guess I'll go next. First of all, I think you gave Gary way too much credit. My concerns looking at this and having a little bit of real estate background, how challenging it is, both cost and timing. And I agree. I think there's some timing issues and some cost issues embedded in this that are going to change things as we go along. Things that we control and some things we can't control.
Correct.
The second thing is, because like Gary, I came out of a multidisciplinary real estate background. I've been doing a lot of discussion with people outside the market, just out of curiosity, where the office market's going, and what that demand's going to be. What's the industrial market going to be like, and how the logistical supply chain is changing. How does that, get factored in?
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of subjectivity into that. I think the retail support is part of the things that we all enjoy as quality of life. I think that's going to play a big part. I'm actually meeting with a broker out of Miami Saturday morning, who's one of the better people that I know in the marketplace. So that's just out of curiosity.
Correct.
But the other thing and this is a little outside of this, when I look at the county as a whole, I look at 3 components that are going to be very important to us. Starting from the north, the Civic Center. What is that going to be, and what is that going to provide for our community and stuff like that? You move south, you move into Skyplex. And so what is Skyplex going to be? And then you get the Kiker Preserve.
Yep.
All are big parcels of land. All will service differently. And so I look at how those things interface and say, okay, how do they play? Where do we get some additional whatever? I think the other thing too is I've got a lot of friends whose kids play in sports and stuff, and Gary and I have talked about that. I don't know if when you talk about the hole in the donut, if there's a better place to address the sports needs in this community.
Yeah.
Where people fly in, use the fields, use the hotels, use the retail, and you're in the shadow of the Red Stadium and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I don't deference the time I went, but something that's a particular interest to me.
No, on that last part, I appreciate that. We've given that consideration. There are 2 points. One, we didn't even talk about the synergy between JetBlue Park and this as well. I mean, there's obviously that obvious. We need to also pay attention to what they're doing on their 20 acres out front and how that could. But in terms of the sports, we've been in communication pretty regularly with a group that has a tremendous amount of interest in bringing sports and human performance to this project.
I know a lot of friends come down and use North Naples Park for lacrosse and so on and so forth. Look at Paradise down, but we're that hole in the donut right in the middle.
Yep.
And we have the airport.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great
job. Thank you for the effort.
Don, would you do me a favor? Would you go back? I think it's further in your presentation, trying to get to a couple of sheets.
On what,
you had a breakdown in funding, PPP, bed tax. If you can go to that.
Yeah. Yeah, bear with me. I'm just going one at a time here, but I'll get there. This one?
If you want to stop, go back to economic impacts. Let's just start from there, since you know.
Fair?
Yeah, that's great to start, you know, and I appreciate, you know, exactly the way you've identified between direct and indirect and obviously induced impacts. If you can then go to the next slide.
Sure.
You know, again, looking at different scenarios, obviously construction impacts and operating. Go to the next slide, if you wouldn't mind.
Yep.
I guess you
Oh, that
made-
was it.
You go, okay, go back. I'm sorry, you made, next, where you were, sorry, where you had there you go, great, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. You know, first and foremost, great presentation, really detailed. I think, you know, listen, as a financial person, I would have loved to have this ahead of time. You know, just to understand the pieces, understand whatever, because there's an awful lot of assumptions you have in this. And without boring the audience, I probably would, you know, sit down with Ben and, you know, coming from a background like his, and just kind of go through
Sure.
what assumption mechanisms you made, how you got there.
Yep.
You know, how do we get to, you know, you talk about 8 years before we break even. Just again, trying to understand the ebb and flows and how we get to a particular form.
Right.
I agree with Commissioner Hammond. There's so many things that you've covered here. I love the jobs. Again, would want to understand how you came up with that analysis. Love the economic impact of the area. You know, really sensitive to what you're doing from the environmental point of view. So it hits all the caveats.
Mhm.
I just, as someone that has put together a million of these,
Sure.
I have no really appreciation for how you came up with what you did.
Yep.
And coming into this and presenting a 40-page slide with not having any review whatsoever, I think there's a lot of questions. I want to move forward with this.
Yeah.
But I don't know in the future if there's an opportunity to see this. First of all, I'd love to have this because I might have some follow-up questions.
Sure.
But if we do something as comprehensive as this, if we can have it prior to,
Yeah.
I think the conversation may be, and in that regard, we might need to separate this from, you know, right after our board meeting, we might want to have just a workshop to make sure we really thoroughly, you know, digest this and more importantly, have a more robust conversation. I think everyone in the room could certainly benefit a great
Right.
deal having that.
Thank you for those comments, Kevin. I would also reference you back to the report that was sent to you last week. I appreciate that there was not enough time probably to work through it. So it's a significant document with a lot of detail, but it's there. And more so, offer to anyone if you want to meet individually on any of this, or if you want to hold a workshop collectively in the future, we're at your disposal to try to answer all of your questions.
Yeah, maybe, Mr. Executive Director, maybe what we can do is we receive that and maybe part of our briefing and whatever, have a more robust conversation. I agree with the
Absolutely.
report. Again, digesting it, but when you have others to bounce it off,
It's
and
all
you
the
got a
better.
great executive team here.
Yep.
That come to my office and go through this process, to have this, to have it as part of it. And listen, but a week is, you know, with
Oh, I
what
know.
has gone on.
I agree.
We literally went from, you know, a hiatus to fast gear, and
Yeah.
all the commissioners can attest.
Yeah.
The days and the meetings have been unbelievably long.
It's a blur.
So
Yeah.
it is. I think you did a great job. I have a respect for your team, Gary, all you all do. I just probably will get more into the weeds, and I don't want to bore everyone in the room.
Yep.
But maybe in the next briefing, even if I have, you know, any questions for Ben, maybe I can grab one of yours as well and sit down
Sure.
and have a cup of coffee in my office.
Happy to do that, and very similar to how our approach to the Economic Development Office, the more eyes, the better. We'd love to have it turned inside out and challenge us.
But thank you very much.
Yeah.
I guess if I may go now.
Oh, Oh, uh, uh,
Oh,
uh, Well, it's adjustable in two, and I'm trying to respond to that question. It's adjustable in two ways, or probably even more. One is, we recognize the conceptual development plan, and I emphasize the flexibility in the design of that. So it can conform and adapt to whatever the uses are going forward, because those two will change us. We have a market demand that shows what it's projecting to be over a period of time, and that's what we're following. But as we all know, that changes, and so our site development plan can change, but we also recognize these numbers are gonna change too. This is our best effort of what we realistically think is a likelihood, but they're gonna go up and down realistically, and that's why that sensitivity analysis gave us even more comfort.
But that's only 15%, one way or the other.
Yeah.
So let's say you have an area designed for, retail,
Yeah,
which would be probably the premium or the office rates.
Yeah.
And you find out now that the demand is really more industrial
Okay.
in that given parcel.
Mhm.
And that, you know, are you guys gonna be around 10 years from now to guide us through, updating the sensitivity analysis and so forth?
God willing. Um, we hope to be. So yeah, things change. I mean, it's no different. You know, I can try to, you know, I came down from Michigan to develop Ave Maria. Massive undertaking. And it has a lot of ups and downs. And when we were going through the design and permitting and the phase one construction, we didn't anticipate that we would be opening it up in 2008 at the lowest point in our local economy. It was devastating. But when you look at it today, it recovers, cycles come back, cycles go up and down, and this will be no different. But that development has come back and is now the second or third fastest growing community in the state of Florida. Babcock Ranch isn't much dissimilar. There are, over these long durations of these large projects, there are fluctuations that have to be taken into consideration.
Are you still working with, Colliers on the development?
I am not. I left in 2000, I don't know what it was, 2009 after we opened up phase one. Gary?
I know Gary will be around, he's a lifer.
Gary?
I'd just like to speak to the fact that Cushman and Wakefield is over 100 years old, and they've been, in that 100-year period, a thought leader in commercial real estate. Will I personally be here in 100 years? I hope not. But I can tell you that the legacy of what we are trying to leave for the next generation is one of the most important drivers of us in this community. Don, myself, Stantec people, even the MXD people who aren't here local all the time, we have captured their hearts and their passion in this project. So yes, market data will change and we'll be on top of those changes. Yes, demand may peak in industrial and may trough in office and then reverse. But the malleability of this property is in the entitlement of it, which we have for perpetuity. And the longer it takes to do that, the more expensive, the more difficult, and the less likely it will be to happen.
Thank you.
No, I knew you wanted to. No, that's okay. From my perspective, looking at it, we have such great opportunity here in Lee County. We're growing tremendously, and I think all of us thought we might get the slowdown, and we didn't. It just keeps going. So, living in the area I live, it's exploding out there because of Babcock, right? And it was mentioned about the Civic Center. We got great opportunity for growth out there, and there's obviously great opportunity here. So, my personal belief is I don't think we're slowing down. I think it's a great project, and where do we invest? And that's a joke because I don't want anyone to say there's a conflict of interest by any means.
Get your $131 million.
Right. But right, if you had $31 million, but there's no question that, in my opinion, we continue to move forward with this simply because we live in paradise. And paradise isn't going away.
This area right here is the future.
It is. And obviously, with this expanding here, it also even helps out there because people are moving out. Let's face it. So, one of my goals and dreams was to take the Civic Center to the next level simply because why can't we have national events? Why can't we have Garth Brooks or the top entertainers in the world come to our town instead of Tampa or Miami? And I believe we can. And this will just be a part of that, obviously. A huge part of it, obviously. So, from my perspective, as one commissioner, I would love to see this continue to go and push forward. As I think the analysis is great job you're doing. It's going to move. We all know that, but I think Lee County is a great place to invest.
Thank you.
So that's my perspective.
What role does the FTZ play in all of this? Have you analyzed that free trade zone?
No, we have not analyzed that at this point.
Is our entire property designated as free trade zone?
It is an FTZ, our entire property is, yeah.
The entire property, and then we have subzones,
Mhm.
Immokalee and so forth.
So it's definitely a tool that we have in our toolbox
yeah,
from a marketing perspective in terms of businesses that want to come here and do business. So we certainly utilize that, and it can be a factor in companies making decisions, obviously, in terms of what they do in business.
So I think we're pretty comfortable with, we continue.
Yeah, no, I think the
Okay.
feedback's been
At this time, if
fantastic.
it's okay, I'd like to go ahead and ask for any public comment.
We don't do that.
Mr. Chairman?
Did we not,
It's on
not
the
required?
agenda.
Workshop, actually, you don't need.
Oh, okay,
Um,
well,
I think the reason
Yeah.
why you asked for it is because it says on the agenda, public comment on agenda items or other matters. It's actually written.
Well, we should get rid of the executive director over
That's it. You're done.
April,
Yeah, you
that's
got
it,
till
that's all we
April
can do.
1st, that's right.
Okay, so we don't need public comment.
No, sorry, not out of
Okay,
order.
we're not required.
No
Okay,
workshop.
then,
It was.
Nope, we don't do it.
All right, we're done.
say
It's at
again.
your discretion, Mr. Chairman, it's not required since the board's not taking any action.
If it's okay, unless you have something very important, well, all right, how about 3 minutes, how's that? Okay, please, go ahead.
30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Some of us had some other meetings, so.
Derek Felder for the record. Since I moved here 3 years ago, and coming to the airport, I've always been watching this project and awaiting for this presentation, and glad you come in to move it forward. Very exciting to see. I just want to clarify one question. Any of the proposed projects, like the hotels and things like that, that would all require to go through the normal zoning process, would it not? Thank you.
I'll make it quick. Thank you. I also have been anticipating learning more. I have some specific questions. I know we talked about 571 developable acres, and then we had 720 gross developable with infrastructure back in. So I'm assuming that that would include the parking lots, et cetera. I just would like a clarification on that delineation. Also want to say that having the opportunity to give public input on this does allow the concerns for the environment to be brought back in, concerns for water quality, for instance, if these lake banks are steep and hardened, we know there's some diminishment. The public would really love to have more than just a view of a lake, but some pocket parks so that the people who are working there could enjoy some benefits and improvements in the quality of life, as well as the surrounding neighborhoods, so that they can gain some benefit, as well as civic commons, finding ways that are going to benefit the public that would be open in utilizing the space. I think it's important that there's room to bring that element and improve upon it in that way. I'm concerned about the 20 million in mitigation, of course, with the core panther and the wetland losses, because there's only one core habitat and breeding area. And then I also wanted to add that understanding some of the entitlements and having the opportunity to examine those documents and in great detail is important. I very much appreciate the opportunity to interact on something of this magnitude, and I think that that we can make it better with public involvement. We can add elements and bring in perspective that benefit everyone, including the developers. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Okay, I close public comment. At this time, I see no further business in front of us.
Lunchtime.